right now.
All right, well, I think it's 1 o'clock.
Monday, I'm out all day Monday.
Oh, it's 1:01. So I'd like to go ahead and get started. First, welcome to the July session for our Master Planning Task Force. Glad to see all your smiling faces. Just as a quick review, I want to go back through. I am Dan Nordhill. I'm chairing the task force, and let's start with the next slide if we could, and we'll go through real quick. Just have everybody just pass around and give us your name, and then we'll remind everybody of who we all are, since I don't know everybody yet, and then we'll get on with today's effort.
Oh, sorry. Hi, Denise Anthony, Unit 50, Lot 51.
Hi, I'm Ray Kuhn, Assistant General Manager.
Sean Crederman, Board Secretary.
Brad Jones, I live in Unit 14, have been here for 4 years and love it.
Tim O'Brien with McMahon Group in St. Louis.
Kevin Carroll, Vice President, Club Consulting with McMahon Group.
Glenn Seligman, excuse me. Glenn Seligman, I'm the Director of Architecture for McMahon Group out of St. Louis.
Hi, I'm Matt Campick, the Board President.
Janet Jensen, Unit 14.
Denise Lexell, Director.
Cindy McAlvin.
Walter Yazzie, General Manager.
Okay, and Penny has had a work conflict of all things, so I can't imagine why she'd be working, but okay. She is, so she's not going to be with us today. Here's our agenda for the day. This meeting is mostly about the interactive part of the McMahon process. So most of this meeting is going to be led by Kevin and Glenn, and primarily Glenn, I would think, in terms of the interactive. Next slide. And again. So as promised, we will review what it is that we're about each and every time we get together, kind of try to keep us focused on our task and not running down rabbit holes in other directions. Give you a chance to read it again. I think the key here is the last paragraph. You know, this is the basis for the capital planning exercise for the next decade, and it's really to help future boards. Next slide. So we start with the first bullet point, which is really our survey from last year. The second bullet, of course, is those of us sitting here at the table. And the work is the third bullet. You know, this is our work, developing a campus master plan using Glenn and Kevin's expertise and Tim today. Walter, of course, has bullet 4 and set us up for a good walk behind the curtain. And then, of course, this last bullet is what our operations and current board are all about, maintaining our facilities. Next slide. So this is where we are starting our steps. This is the work we're about. This is the iterative process as Glenn described in our first meeting. We will continue to develop and review options. We'll come back and have further discussions. Today we were talking earlier about the fact that how do we give you feedback as a board or as a task force? And what works and what doesn't work. And the description was, as we go through today, Glenn will stop at certain points and look for reactions from the task force. But he also recognizes that that's a first reaction, and that hasn't given you a chance to sleep on the topic or talk to other folks or get input from the community. So the recommendation is that we, rather than inundate them with 14 different viewpoints, that we'll get first reactions today, but then as a task force, we need to have some time to chew on what we saw, bounce ideas off each other a little bit, and then we need to provide the team input, and the deadline they gave me was the last Friday of July, so that they have enough time to do their work and prepare for the next meeting, which will be the 19th of August. So we have some work to do after today's session to chew on what you saw. So take notes, please, as we're going through this. If you see a slide and you want Kevin to stop or Glenn to stop, just ask them to stop. That's the process. And but let's not go too deep here, because they've got a lot of territory to cover, and we'll go on from there. Next slide. Again, a reminder, this is what it's about. I think this is kind of one of your cookie cutter slides that you probably use all the time. The second plank up there, I think, is a typical. It may not necessarily be the highest priority that gets funded first. It may be that that's the first opportunity. So I think that the words may not be perfect for our fit, but they're close enough, right, for now. And the lower priority improvements, I mean, we keep talking about, is there some low-hanging fruit out there we may want to do before too far out in the future? But the thing we all remember is, and have in front of us, most of the capital for our community is tied up for the next 4 or 5 years as we think about this. And so most of the major projects that we come out of this with are very likely to be 5 years out. Okay, next slide. Pretty clear we're early on in this process. We're at the beginning. We're in the iterative process, and it'll be a few months as we go forward. Matt, your favorite slide.
Yeah, Dan, back up 2 slides. 2 slides? 2 slides. That right there. So that top for the task force, the master plan is a long-term view on facility improvement and development. And so as you're interacting with all of our fellow residents, there's a lot of confusion about what it is that we're doing. And so what's Mountain View Clubhouse future look like? That's the work we're in. We're not in the reserve study maintenance business. We're in the dreaming up where we're going business. Why is this important? Go forward 2 slides. So last year's board got together and started talking about unfinished business that we needed to tackle in 2023. And part of that was producing a strategic plan. Later on in the year, McMahon Group comes on and we do our survey. And one of the black eyes in the survey from the residents was the performance of management and the board, or the governance structure of the community. What they were really frustrated about, I believe, is the fact no one knew where we were going. If you don't know where you're going, any road's going to take you someplace. So the first thing that we did was we said, let's take an inventory of the things that we're doing right. The things the community's done right from a governance perspective is a reserve study every 3 years. We've done a road study every 3 years. Walter and Ray just completed the 24 road study, which will feed the 25 reserve study. Why is that important? Because roads cost money. And that needs to show up in the reserve study accurately so we can raise the appropriate funds through POA to make sure that we have the funds to take care of our roads as well as the rest of our common property. We never had a plan for golf courses until 2021 when we hired an architect and he created a master plan for both the Mountain View and the preserve golf courses. What was missing? We had no strategic plan, which was, who are we and what do we want to be? More importantly, how are we going to connect the efforts, the vision of the board, with the day-to-day activities of Walter and his team, and benefit with the leverage of our committees here, our volunteer committees here in the community? What was the last up of all of that? There wasn't any. And so by producing the strategic plan, this year in January, we issued the first board manual where we connected successfully board strategic vision with Walter and his staff, and most importantly, with our volunteer committees. The next piece of this puzzle is the facility master plan. And what this group has been put together for, and I just got counseled in the hallway, because you all are not experts in architecture, heating and air conditioning, and plumbing, and all the rest of it, and I blamed it all on Kevin Carroll. I built the task force, I should say the board built the task force in accordance with the McMahon way. And the expert piece is down the road, where we need all those smart energy people, road people, building people, all that stuff is coming. That's the future. That's not today's work. When we're done, McMahon Group's going to present a facility master plan for board approval. And the last piece of this puzzle is the 10-year financial plan. Now, it's really a forecast. And so this year, the board is committed to producing the 2025 budget with a 5-year plan for the first time in a long time with the 10-year forecast. Why is all this important? Because it lays out all the responsibilities that a board member has as a fiduciary obligation to our corporation. Each one of our residents is a member of that corporation. And it's the fiduciary responsibility of the 7 members sitting on the board is to understand all the pieces of the puzzle and how they fit together and how they get resourced over time by the members. The better job that we as a board do on the planning side of the house, the more efficient we're going to become on executing on the resource side of the house. So this is a critical piece to the long-term health and vitality of Saddlebrook HOA2. Everybody here is going to be here for some period of time. Some of us are going to come, some of us are going to go. But what's important is that we manage the community from a stable position where everybody pays their fair share over time, and we don't experience what we experienced this year with the $1,500 assessment. So hopefully that helped tie this, why this graphic is so important to us, and this journey that we've been on for the last 19 months and will continue on for some time into the future, because work never gets done.
Okay, let's jump ahead. Schedule forward, at least the next 3 months, you can see will be at Desert View next month on Tuesday the 20th, and then on Tuesday the 17th of September, we'll be back in this room. And there's more after that, but that's the next few months. Next slide. So our meeting process again, the task force worked with the McMahon Group. This is our iterative process. At the end of the session, we'll turn Tim, Kevin, and Glenn loose so that they can go catch their airplanes to their next meetings. And then we'll have time for our resident discussions. Next slide. I don't have to go over this one because Matt just did. So this is basically everything Matt just talked about with a little bit more information that says, you know, really look for 2030 to 2034 is when we really start getting into what the capital planning for major projects might look like. Next slide. So we start with the survey results. This slide should say Dan's takeaways, because basically these were what I kind of read and saw. I mean, after reviewing the 1,070 or so responses in the survey, that was our homework from the last meeting, and visiting the back areas at Mountain View, Desert View, and the maintenance yard, I gotta say there's a couple that just jump out. One, walking paths is a hot topic for the community. And I think Glenn's got some things he's going to share with us today that'll be really good. Another one is that the preserve complex was perfectly designed for when Robeson was just starting to build houses up there. And now that it's getting closer to being built out, everybody's looking around going, wow, this is way, way, way too small. Second, or the third and fourth bullet points are kind of from that walk around. We do have a couple $1 million in equipment that sits outside in our maintenance yard, shared between the golf and the common areas team. And the longer that stuff sits outside, uncovered, means more maintenance costs for Walter's team. And certainly it's causing that equipment to deteriorate faster, which means we're going to have to replace it faster. So when we start talking about where are we spending money and what are losses, that's a big one. And then I think Walter was commenting last month that he says, you know, it's a long ways for the CAM team to be dealing with the preserve. And when I look back at my work history and I think about losses and how much time people have to spend driving, wow, we really do need to spend some time studying that. And then, of course, the bistro and banquet rooms. I wish everybody had an opportunity to walk back behind these walls and duck, because you feel like things are just going to come flying off the shelves at you. It's so tight back there. And you know, I told my wife that I thought the kitchen kind of looked like the old kitchen at the Waffle House, except they don't serve quite as many meals at the Waffle House as they do out of our kitchen area. It's woefully underdesigned. But I digress. Those were my takeaways from the walk around and from the survey, and there was a whole bunch more that was in there, but it's not pertinent. Some of it's not pertinent to our task at hand. So without further ado, I think it's time for Kevin and Glenn to earn their nickel.
Thank you very much, Dan. That was a good overview. We went through these last time at the meeting, but I thought it was just a good idea to cover them fairly quickly again to remind us all what the survey did say, in addition to Dan's takeaways, and that was one thing that we had almost 60% agreement on of members of the community found it important that we do produce a facilities master plan for all association facilities and amenities, and only 13% of the residents found it unimportant. So we do have important work to do, and it's so good that you're all here to devote the time and energy to do that. Beyond that, a multi-use activities center, 34% found it important, 29%, and then you see most people don't understand the common area maintenance facility. Most people don't find it, important or unimportant. They're just neutral. because they don't know. They don't know what they don't know. And if we could get everyone to as you say, take a tour and see the equipment that we've all invested millions of dollars in, kind of exposed to the elements, we'd get a different result on that. So when we looked at the preserve, we asked the residents here what the most important things were for the preserve moving forward. You see there 41% found that a larger outdoor dining and bar area with views for dining and socialization. 41% is a good number, big number, and only 25% found that unimportant. Again, these are all preserve. Provide a larger bar lounge space to socialize. So I don't know, we've got a lot of people who want to lounge and socialize here at the bar. So I guess that's all good news, right? That's good. 38% found that important and only 28% unimportant. The fitness area, again, you know, these numbers are interesting to view because those of us who live down, I'll say down in this area, near Mountain View or Desert View, we have our fitness facility and we use the fitness facility, but those who are, you know, up the hill probably find that fitness area a little bit smaller, so it's a little bit undersized, but we had 31% find it important. And then the space for fine dining, 27% important, and so on. And then on to future improvements, potential future improvements at Mountain View. Updating the dining room, 38% found important. Larger indoor, outdoor, there's that bar lounge space again. 38% found that important. Updating the bar grill area, 36% found that important. And a little less so the meeting room space and expanding the dance floor. And those are things that we heard from those who are very active in committees and those who utilize the meeting room space. And again, from the staff, from Walter and Ray's standpoint and others, talking about how kind of tight we are on meeting room space here. So the community doesn't necessarily understand what is needed there, but and it's reflected in their survey comment or survey numbers. From a recreational facilities standpoint, interestingly enough, a big number, 64%, we've got a lot of walkers in the community. People want to see improved sidewalks and walking trails. 64% find it important and only 12% find that unimportant. So that we want to, we want to be fit, which is important. And then you can see on down the line, a little bit less important as we go down. Again, even the golf course maintenance facilities are inadequate in size and function. 33% find that important, but most people just don't know. It's an area that they just don't have any concept of. It'd be like asking us, as Dan mentioned, the kitchen. If we ask people, gee, do you think we need to improve our kitchen? Most people wouldn't have any idea because they haven't been back there or worked in the facilities, but if they had the knowledge, they would certainly be in favor of that. And then moving on to our community facility organization, and we'll have Glenn weigh in on this.
So yeah, I think the interesting thing that I sort of see in a lot of communities, and we work in a lot of communities, is you have a sort of a continuum of facilities, of facility styles, right? And the one facility style that is at the extreme left end here is the what I call a nuclear facility, and that's sort of illustrated by the bold outlet, and that's sort of the kind of facility we have here in Saddlebrook too. And that facility is really where each outlet across the community provides some aspect of each major activity. So think about the way your facilities work. At Desert View, you have a pool and some fitness facilities and a library. At Mountain View, you have a pool and a golf course outlet and fitness facilities and a library and dining. And at the Preserve, we've got a pool and tennis. You can see that each of your facilities that you've created here, or Robson created, the community has created, has all of these things that are providing each and every one, maybe not each and every one, but many of those things. So in a perfect platonic nuclear facility, every aspect, every community center, every social center of the club would provide each one. So you're not quite all the way down at the nuclear end, because obviously you've developed a pickleball in a separate location now. Unlike maybe Saddlebrook 1, where you have one of each thing, and there are other communities like that across the country where we worked, like at Sawgrass Country Club, for example. You have a fitness center and a tennis center and a main golf course dining center and a beach club, and each one of those, and a lifestyle center. Each one of those aspects of the community is serving one potential thing, and you don't have tennis courts at every different facility, and you don't have pools at every different facility. You have them where they're appropriate and supporting. And again, a perfectly platonic ideal of that probably doesn't exist, but because there's more than one pool at Sawgrass, for example. But that's an example. And I was just thinking about that in regards to when we were working on some of the designs here for this club, because you start thinking, do we really want to have tennis courts at every facility, or would it be better to, like you've done with Pickle, to do that? And it's something I think our group should think about a little bit. We have gone down the road, just so you know, sort of staying in the lane that we're already in. We're seeing this more as a incremental improvements kind of plan rather than a transformational plan at this point. The challenge that you will all face forevermore as you deal with this creature that we have and we're going to continue to improve is it costs more to run where you have all of these different facilities at every one of them, and they're all spread out all over everywhere, then you could, and you have less focus in your programming, right? So if you have a single fitness center that everybody goes to, that can be much more focused in terms of what it provides and the kind of activity. And you don't have, and I don't know how much this happens now, but it could happen. You could imagine it happening in the future, fitness staff transitioning from one building to the other. And it's just as Dan was talking about earlier, as your CAM staff has a lot of labor that's just lost in just moving around the community. And you could see that same kind of thing, and Walter probably, and you guys probably deal with it today, just losing labor, just moving people from here to there to try to deal with whatever you're trying to support. So as we think about that, I just thought it'd be worth our thought process to think about, do we really want to have more tennis courts there, or should we be trying to find some other space to do? That's sort of part of master planning. You can sort of check it off the box. You can say, yeah, that's all working for us, what we're doing, and continue in incremental improvement. This is the way we want to go. Or the other way to go is to say, you know what, we thought about that, and we want to think about some other options as well. So, and you'll see we have options that we're going to talk about today as a part of that. And we're going to get now into the sort of the master planning part of this thing as we're thinking about master plans. And this is sort of an illustration of that across our entire site. And it also has some other illustrations on it. So let me take you through this sort of piece by piece. And it's a little, I'm going to turn a little bit with the microphone so you can both hear me and I can see what I'm talking about. And this is not exact, obviously, because it's hard. You know, I know that Saddlebrook sort of goes outside it, but this is the circle drive, and within the main circumferential circle around Saddlebrook 1 is basically Saddlebrook 1, and obviously, I know it sneaks out in some places, but outside of that is largely Saddlebrook 2, right? So all the way from Desert View and the developments around here, all the way up past the Preserve Clubhouse, all the way up to the golf maintenance at Preserve up here. And again, this is sort of a bit of an illustration of that previous slide where you think about, okay, well, what keeps us from being totally in that area is we've now developed a pickleball center that everybody goes to pickleball here, more or less, across the entire campus. And then we have golf and community maintenance in these boxes here, widely spread apart. We have our Desert View, which if you think about the program of what we provide in Desert View, just as I said, we have pool, we have fitness. It's probably our primary fitness outlet. And we have tennis, and we have the theater operation there, and the library. So, that's our primary library operation there. So that's sort of the program that we have there, and you'll see as we get into it, we'll get into each of those things. And then we have our Mountain View, which has our arts and crafts, and this is probably our main, you would think of it as our main facility, obviously, because it's got so much stuff, but it's our course, it runs our course, it's got our pool, it's got some fitness facilities in this area. And then it's got some, the admin function, which is mostly centralized here, I think. And then we have our arts and crafts facilities, our dining facilities and meeting rooms, in the room we're in today, obviously, our big meeting room and ballroom and all that, where we can all get together and have dances and all that kind of thing. So that's, and then obviously tennis and pool, all of those sort of recreational facilities are there as well. And then up at the top, as we get into the preserve, we got, again, tennis courts and our golf outlet, our swimming pool, our fitness, our meeting rooms up there, all of which are probably, as we think about it, and you'll see as we're kind of getting into it, sort of many of those elements are undersized and need to be improved in terms of size, going back to Dan's comment as well. And then we've got our 2 golf maintenance outlets and community maintenance as well in these areas here. And then the other thing that you're seeing on this is the existing trail routes that we have, right? So we have a Mountain View Trail that's 2.3 miles long, which is this one here, but not particularly connected yet. And then we have our Clubhouse Trail, which is sort of a single end-to-end kind of trail here. And then we have a preserve trail up around the preserve. And then we have a long preserve trail that runs around that way. And so as a part of what we're doing here, studying additional trails or additional connectivity is all a part of it. And there are some other ideas that we ultimately could get into in that, but at this point we thought we'd just identify them and talk about them. Matt and I have actually taken a bit of a tour. We were going, what was it, Matt, down this way, and there's some space along this fairway here, and there's some space along these fairways where things could, paths could be improved. And in a way, that's sort of the committee's going to work with that and help us identify those areas. So that's part of the process of getting that identified on the map and sort of showing it. And it could end up being a specialty trail committee that might want to work on that as well. So I'll stop there for just a minute. And any questions in the committee or any comments about what we developed there?
The slide deck will be on the board website so that the community can have access to the slide deck, right? But
We'll send a link to all.
yeah, we'll send a link to everybody.
Kevin's link.
Okay. Yeah.
Point of clarification here. So we really only have one DG or dirt path, if you will, walking path. The others are sidewalks. Is that correct?
I think so. Yes. Yeah. I think, but they're listed as trails on your map. You know, as places that people. I mean, they're sidewalks, but they're identified as trails on your community map, which is where we got that from. Yeah. No, I think that's correct.
I don't think we have any signage or indications in the community that those trails are identified in the community itself, maybe on paper, but not that we could very easily be marking the purple trail, the orange trail, the pink trail. I don't think we have that.
I think that's a good you know, that's why I sort of brought that to your attention, is that, you know, that a trail, you know, you'd think of a trail committee, somebody who's, I mean, and there's enough people interested in this thing that a little bit of brainstorming could go on, and you could say, okay, well, here's the things that we want to have on the fitness trail. Could have some fitness equipment along it and all that kind of stuff. And in a way, it's sort of something that's identified in a master plan, but again, the actual implementation of it is so detail oriented that it has to be sort of done we identify that it needs to be done. But in terms of the exact route and what's going to happen along it and how we're going to identify it so people have the right signage and that kind of thing is something that's implemented at a more detailed level generally.
Right. So this is a separate community that the board gets this plan and says, yeah, we need a committee, go do, right? Not our job to do that. That's a board job. Sorry, Sean. She's all for it, I know. She's got other ones to go too.
And you said about looking for opportunity, right? This is a huge opportunity with a relatively low cost. And You look at our map that we get from Robeson, and HOA 1 has all these trails marked on it with the mileage and all the coloring. And we do too, but we just haven't worked it. So it's a very a good addition with low cost.
Moving on, any other questions, comments about, we're going to go into each one of these areas in more detail, talk about them. Okay. So, and starting out with Mountain View, this is an aerial photo of our Mountain View facility, everybody, and you can see, I mean, it's just sort of help orient everybody because you're not all necessarily used to looking at maps and aerials, and we're going to turn these into plans as well, but obviously Mountain View Boulevard coming along, our main entry into our main Mountain View clubhouse here, and that's the main clubhouse. And then you have the secondary entry that comes into the admin building, and then the other secondary, or maybe it's a primary entry that comes into the golf operation here and to the pool. And then there's some fitness in this facility as well as some meeting rooms and other kinds of things. So, and again, this is not a 100% up-to-date map because you get the aerial photos that you're provided by Google or Bing or whoever. So it doesn't have our new trail that connects 9 and 10 yet on this view, and then doesn't have some of our newer covers that cover our cart parking and our parking lot out here, our solar shade. So eventually those will get added, I'm sure, when new aerials are updated, but then you can see your tennis courts, got 5, and these are, as I understand it, properly oriented. People are well pleased with the way these courts work, and they work pretty well. They're attractive, in my opinion, and you both from looking at them as you drive by and as you would see them from the court. So we didn't have a lot to change around the courts, the pool, which is also attractive and seems to be adequate to what it's trying to accomplish here. But the places that there seemed to be weaknesses were in this admin building, in the arts and crafts. One other thing I wanted to point out on this aerial is the service access and how small the service yard is and what you have to work with, which is running the entire operation for the ballroom, all of the meeting rooms, the dining room and the bar, and all of the stuff that you're doing is all getting serviced out of this little yard here, which is much smaller than you would expect for this kind of facility. And again, a bit, just like everything here, a bit spread out, right? So you have all of these facilities and they spread from here to there. In a more centrally organized facility, it might all be together, but that's not the way this was developed. And so, but it does have the ample parking and nice cart parking areas and good golf starting and finishing areas and all that kind of stuff. So that's sort of where we are. And now this is all, everything we've done there is now converted into a flat plan, right? So what we were just looking at is all the same spots. So that our main entry into our clubhouse, our arts and crafts and admin building, our golf pro shop, our pool, all of those things. Here's the cover over the cart barn that is missing in the aerial, the cover over the parking that's missing in that aerial. The tennis court covers and the tennis courts are here. And then what we're showing you here is now some design ideas, and basically we'll get into each one of these individually, but you should know that the green bubbles are indicating some sort of community member a la carte space or dining space that our members are using that space or serving people. Our red bubbles are some sort of back of house space like a kitchen or storage or things like that. And then our purple bubbles tend to be something around some sort of planned or event activity like a meeting room or something that you would reserve or use that room. And then and then our other color coding on this plan is everything that's in the peach color is some sort of new addition or major new addition to the clubhouse, and then anything that's sort of, it's a little hard to pick up here, but there's some tan coloration in here that's separate from the white that shows areas which we would expect major renovation. And then obviously these covered areas are shown with this little blue color here, so there's a shaded area going in the main entry and shaded in the covered areas there, or the covered area over the carts or that kind of thing are showing up. I will stop here in just a second, but I want to go through each area of this and sort of give you some of our design ideas that are sort of driving this. And again, This is more of an incremental approach to master planning rather than we didn't see a need to blow up the facility and completely rebuild Mountain View. What you have here has got good bones. It's just there's things that were left out or not thought about, or the usages changed, or we would expect the usage to change over time. And so the master plan is meant to address those issues and create that aspect of it for us. And so what we're showing you here now is this is the main entry, and it's a bit of a blow up here. And the concept here for the Mountain View Clubhouse is, and just bear with me, I'm going to start at the back. The kitchen is completely undersized today. It's about 2,360 square feet of existing kitchen, and we think you ought to be about 5,100 square feet. And this red bubble indicates about 5,100 square feet. And the question is, well, how are you getting that, Glenn? Well, I'm taking your existing covered areas, and I'm moving your entire dining space out under those existing covered areas and moving the dining space so that instead of being deep in the space the way it is today, so you're in this room and you go way back here and way back here, and it's quite deep and far away from the views. Being far away from the views makes it, you know, it's okay, but it's not, you've got this world-class view all along this wall, and so our idea is to make the space thinner and longer in terms of the space, and how that ultimately happens in the interior design, well, that's way down the road. But if you have a thin, long space, you can get to 5,500 square feet, 200 or 260 seats in a bistro and a bar lounge space that's all on interior space. And then we create a new outdoor covered terrace that wraps that along the front, and you would be able to do the indoor-outdoor kind of modern style dining, push the bar, instead of having the bar in the back, you'd be able to bring it to the front, where you'd be able to look at the view while you're at the bar instead of having your back to the view. Basically though, this is indicating complete renovation of our entire dining program and our entire kitchen, which I think is critical ultimately to a future success of the club. Other things that help with that success is the ability then to rework the entire landscaping plan. Because today, we were sitting in the bistro today, looking out the window, sort of right in this area, not even very far back from the windows, and you can't see the mountain at all. I mean, there's a little bit of mountain back there, but it's all covered up with all kinds of other stuff. And so the mountain is A100, the thing. Why else would you be here to set the, you know? It's Mountain View, right? So let's look at the mountain, right? So you got to adjust the landscaping here so that it both blocks view of the parking and emphasizes view of the mountains. So that's very important to the master plan concept of this entire dining operation. In addition to that, we need more storage. And what we've done here is we've taken an interior room, which is that Sonoran room, and made that 1,500 square feet of storage. It's back behind here. Maybe some of you may not even know where it is. It's sort of back in the basement. You know, you have to go back and past the corridor, past the restrooms, and get into that back room. We say, well, if that became storage, we would recreate that Sonoran room in a new addition here at the ballroom side of the club. And the concept with that is that we would enclose and encapsulate some of the porches that are outside and expand those porches to create a new entry into the ballroom side. And basically create a party entry, which would then create, and this is something that came out of our meeting last time. Remember we said, well, we're in this ballroom, we don't get any view. Well, that's pretty obvious, and typically that's not that's not unexpected, right? So mostly ballrooms are internally focused. You're having a dance, you're listening to a speaker, you're watching a play, something like that. You don't need the view when all that stuff is going on internally focused. But where you do want the view is when you come and leave, right? So the idea here is to create potentially a new pre-function space, which could be part of that Sonoran room, which could open up to the view, and you could have views all the way along this, getting, again, views of the mountain and the views that you could create there. You have a pre-function space as you come into the party, whatever it is. You don't really have that space today. It's just this hallway or standing out under the porch. You could have meet and greets and all that kind of stuff before you come to whatever activity is going on in this ballroom. And then as you come back out of that event, you're back into that view again, looking at that view, and sort of, it just, again, highlighting the mountain, the whole aspect of Mountain View, you know, that kind of thing. Other things that we would do there, today you have, interestingly enough, Dan was talking about this back corridor here. The back corridor actually doesn't connect to the end of the room here. So in terms of service, it connects out of the kitchen to this room, but if these movable walls are pulled, you can't get to that room without going outside some way or the other. And so our concept there is to, again, incremental changes that will make this thing work so much better, is to let that service corridor go all the way down past the end of the ballroom and into some storage. Today there's storage in a what we call Butler building, or temporary storage shed that's just set behind the building here. Eliminate that and enclose the porch and create some more storage there that would all support this entire activity. And then inside the space we'd have the same size space that we have today in terms of ballroom with 3 movable walls and all that kind of stuff. But it's just a much better aspect, much easier to serve and much easier to use and much better from a approach and exiting aspect. Yes?
Does the ballrooms, the hallway, and the meeting rooms all stay as they are?
Yes. In this, right now, what I'm proposing here.
Yeah, it's just one big space, so that's what I'm clarifying.
It is, right. So this is just drawn over the site plan for the moment, but everything would stay. Anything in the white is basically existing, whatever you have existing there. So the little library annex, all the little meeting rooms, the hallway, the restrooms, all of those things stay. It's only the things that are colored, are bubbled, that would be changing.
Do you know the old Sonoran room, is that the same square footage as the relocated new Sonoran room?
I think our relocated one's a little bit smaller. The old one is about 1,500, and we're down to about 1,000 square feet and 60 seats. Obviously, but the concept there is it could be any size we want it to be, so we could push it out further. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we could. Yeah. But the concept there is this whole area is probably about 3,000 square feet, 1,000 here and 2,000-ish, more or less, for that whole pre-function concept that we're looking at there, which gives us plenty of room. Serving this ballroom's about 6,000 square feet. You know, so that's all standing. This is sitting in here. Could be sitting. The Sonoran room. Well, I don't disagree with you. I just think it's in a strange place. Right.
So Glenn, a question. This is major. This is not, the low picking fruit here, this design.
Right.
But you would have to close the entire facility. So I'm asking about your expertise, because we know what happens when you shut a golf course down. Okay, now you're talking about shutting down the whole major food facility. So from your experience, how do clubs manage that? Because it's a huge revenue loss.
It is. So sometimes it's actually interesting. Sometimes you actually you actually make money on that, but some clubs do. When you shut it down, because you're not losing money on every meal that you serve. Assuming that it's really a service loss and it's really a value loss to our community members as we're trying to use our facility. And every club that goes through a painful process like this, where you do it, has to address that in various ways. In some ways, sometimes many clubs will shut down a piece of it. For example, you could, in a situation like this, you might be able to keep your existing kitchen running and serve food in the ballroom while you're building a new kitchen and building a new bistro, something like that. So there could be ways around it. You'd have to, other clubs set up a tent and have a tent and a portable kitchen, and some clubs do food trucks. So we're not at the point now that we have to decide how we're going to handle that, but every club that goes through this, or every community that goes through this with a major community center, has to make decisions about, we know we've got to do this big project. It's going to be painful to us because we're going to lose some facility that we're used to having. How are we going to address that? And that cost ultimately would have to be built into any project that does that. Matt?
Yeah, so one of the things that we've been missing in all of our presentations, this is coaching. What's after this task force? there's got to be a facilities committee that Kevin's already coached me up on that follows this. So the kind of thought that you just, that's downstream work, because you're absolutely right. Preserve is going to be major. Anything here would be major. And so we're going to have all the smart people, all those architect, construction people we didn't want in this room will be in that room to help advance that and answer the question on how do we eat that elephant when the community decides that's the elephant we're going to eat. But there will be a body formed after this task force no longer exists.
I think that's right. And then the thing that you think about in that regard, everybody, is that, and somebody said it earlier, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there, right? And it's fine. But what our goal here is to know where we're going. We don't have to know all the waypoints along the way and all that kind of stuff. And it's frankly, but what we can do is if we know that we want to do that project, we're going to hire different experts for that project than we would hire for some other project that we might have in different places. So our goal here is to know what kind of project we're doing enough of the way so that we get, when we go out to hire our experts or to gather our experts around the table to get that project, to pick that project's important now, we'll get the right group because we know what kind of group we want. If you don't go about it that way, you might end up hiring people who don't have any knowledge about what you're really trying to do, you know. So anyway, that's sort of where we're going. Does that cover what you?
Yeah, the only other thing is in the survey, in the comments, I think I counted 23 times. People talked about coffee shop, pastries, ice cream, a mini place. It was all over that survey.
Keep that thought.
Okay, because I don't see anything but large dining here. So, but clearly that was what people were looking for. So I just want to make sure we'll see that somewhere.
I think we will, yeah, and we may find that we might have to, again, duplicate facilities sometimes. We have to think about that. But we do have that in this later that we're showing up. This is, again, we've got a lot of things that we have to deal with here, and sometimes you sort of deal with them just in a way that just sort of makes sense. And one is that you have way too small a space for your whole facility maintenance shop activity, and it sort of lives in a little space back here and a little space outside. And these are the people who maintain all of the facilities. Not the community facilities, but the facilities we own here, our buildings, and changing out lights and having storage space and all that kind of stuff. You just need more of that to be able to do that well. You don't have good employee support space. You don't have a good new resident welcome center today, right? So if you go if you're a new resident here and you go into the office, there's this little, it's not even a cubicle, it's a space behind the cubicle that you're getting introduced to the community. It's very very haphazard and not well thought out. And then you've got all these arts and crafts experiences. In our estimation, over the next 10, 15 years, members are going to want more arts and crafts experiences, more room to do the things, to have that kind of interaction here at the facility. And so our way of solving all that is to add a second floor, as you can see at the top, over this entire facility. And as you add that, and it doesn't have to happen all at once, but it could happen all at once. And as you would do that, you'd be able to create on the lower floor of this facility plenty of room to do all of the activities that you're thinking about in terms of facility maintenance and back of the house stuff. And then on the upper level, you'd be able to create this super new residence welcome center and all that kind of stuff. And then in these other spaces above these other rooms, again, you might not need it today, but I think you will eventually need more space for arts and crafts, for all of the kinds of things, the computer, all of those things that you guys are doing in these meeting rooms, that would all be able to happen in this building and really create more space for that. Those activities here at Mountain View. And then last but not least, and in thinking about what our biggest miss here is And maybe a coffee shop might be amiss here as well, because you could sort of think about that in this area. So I'm glad you brought that up. But this concept of if we had a place for, you kind of struggle a little bit thinking about, well, do you need indoor golf or other kinds of simulated sports events in a place where it's so beautiful all the time? But you do have these hot afternoons and all that kind of stuff. So it gives you a way to get out of the sun and do these sort of, you could have associated with this golf shop the ability to have a couple of simulators and a lounge that sort of gives you a different aspect than you have today. And it's something that many of our communities and clubs are including, whether they do it right away or just have a place for it in the master plan. Now, where that is underneath that cover that exists today, which is somewhat underutilized. So, but the idea is you got a lot of covered space out there, and you could potentially still have covered. This is the meeting room here. This is the new golf shop here. Right off the golf shop, you'd have a lounge and a couple of simulators, and those things could actually be built in such a way that a garage door opens up on the outside as well, so that they're not necessarily totally enclosed all the time, but they can be enclosed, and so that the cameras work and the screens work and all that kind of stuff. But they can also open up so that you get natural light, and a lot of times they'll have an indoor putting aspect next to an outdoor putting aspect or something like that, and still maintaining some come and go covered space adjacent to it. So that was kind of an interesting idea. It doesn't really hit the survey. It's really something that, again, part of the reason to have us here and for you to think about it is that for us to be thinking about things that maybe the people in the community didn't really think about yet, or we think that are going to be important in the future, even though they're not important right now. So the survey, although it's a guide and it helps us think about priorities, it's not the end all and be all, and so things like this can pop up and be included. I think a cafe down in this area. What do we have do we have any food service for this? For the pool?
No, we don't, and that's the thing, we're all up here, and well, yeah, but it's a minimal food menu. But what I'm thinking, Glenn, is that we want more people to be able to use the spaces despite their interests. Okay, so if you had an ice cream shop in there or a coffee shop in there, then it's the use is spread across more of the resident interests, and I think that's something we need to keep an eye on, because we don't want to get into isolated users for our renovated spaces. That would be a mistake.
I agree. Yeah, it's something that you're going to compete against yourself, obviously, when you have all these things going across all the things. But being able to create differential interests together in the same space is part of why we're a club. We want to be around each other. That's why we live in a community like this.
And people will say, "What's in it for me?" So we have to have a broad enough cavity there of interest, right, to make it worth everybody's investment.
Any other committee? Any other thoughts on what we're showing you here at Mountain View? Let's move on. We can always come back, right? So this is desert view, and again, starting with the aerial photo. Remember, some of our challenges here, some of the big challenges here were, especially when the big theater events are on, the parking is all down the street. There's not enough parking in this lot to handle all of the things that are going on potentially simultaneously here. This is the theater in the center. You can sort of see the higher loft in the central area, and then an entry to the theater, an entry to the building here, our pool, obviously, and then our tennis courts. Another challenge that we had here with this building was the tennis courts are not optimally oriented. And so they're the least popular tennis courts, and they only provide 4 courts, and there was a desire in the committee to think of 5 courts at our 2 main tennis facilities, Mountain View and here. There's no way to achieve 5 courts at Preserve. It seems as there's no way to do that. Not anything's possible, but again, we're thinking of incremental solutions here rather than blowing everything up and starting over again. So, and then our pool, and this actually seems to work pretty well, but I'll take comments from the committee on anything that you don't think it is. And then this is sort of leftover. What do we do? Do we do anything in that space today? It was pickle, but is it used anymore? That's our cornhole thing, right? Okay. And then this is sort of dead space in the middle, which is used as rock grinding or something right now, which seems an odd place to do that. And so, and then we have some space here that's sort of in between space as well. And so you sort of, as you look at a plan like this, you're thinking about, well, what kind of space, what are we lacking? One thing, again, just as we lack space here coming in the entry to come to this event, whatever event we're having in this ballroom, I think you lack space at this theater, because all you have is that one narrow, relatively narrow, when you think of all those people going in and coming out at the same time, hallway at the front, and there's that one little bar, which I can't even imagine how that would even be functional in an event where you have all of those people at the same time. And then the other access is really that very, even more narrow access from this way coming in. So it just seems like that there's, and of course you have the other fitness facilities in this aspect as well, right? So fitness here and fitness rooms there, which those seem relatively well-sized and adequate to the mission. But the entry in and the hallway, the reception, those all seem, and the parking, those all seem to be really areas that could be addressed. And so a concept that we came up with here, and there's a number of things on this piece of paper, so just bear with me and I'll go around, and I'm actually going to show you a blow-up of this next, so it's a little tighter in. But here, basically, the main thing I want you to take away on this sheet is we're finding you about 150 more parking spaces on this lot, and I'll explain that in the next slide. And that's the kind of thing that could really be transformational to making this much more functional facility, I think, over time, especially when you start adding other kinds of events here. And so on this blow-up slide, what we're showing here is elevating the tennis courts. Today, this ground slopes from relatively low out here to relatively high back here. And you could, along this facade, along this line right here, level this entire ground at a lower level and then build these tennis courts over so that the tennis courts really wouldn't be that much higher than they are today, but the parking would go underneath them, and we could pick up 5 elevated courts with the more optimal orientation to the sun, all built atop of 150 new parking spaces. Now, parking may not be important. It may not ever be important to do this, but if it is important, here's a way of dealing with that and still maintain. And this is one of the things that sort of brought me to that idea. This is a big solution. Do we really want tennis here and at Mountain View and at the Preserve? It's something that we should think about, because this is a big solution. It'll work. You can do it. We do it in Florida all the time, where you elevate tennis courts over parking or other kinds of activities. And they don't have to be elevated so high that they're in everybody's view, because we can lower the ground here for the parking. And so you only go up half a story higher than they already are to get the tennis courts up in the air. The other thing we're showing here is 2 more things that are all connected, and one is a new theater gathering place and sports cafe. And the concept with that sports cafe is supporting both a new indoor pickleball facility, and again, now duplicating facilities here, but the idea of getting maybe 6 or 8 courts, somewhere in that range. I'm showing 8 here. Somewhat depends on setbacks and all that kind of thing. But if you did 8 courts in a new facility, that would be, and that's not just pickleball. We talked about it as pickleball, but when we were looking at it, we're thinking of it as a multi-use type facility, right? So it could be other kinds of gym activities. It could be indoor exercise, which support the exercise mission that's going on here at the Desert View anyway. And it was all connected via a new theater place and gathering cafe. Now here's the thing that's really hard to read on this plan. It's a little bit detailed, but if you'll remember, the stage in front of the stage, the ground, the first row of seats are all depressed, right? They're down in the ground. And if you actually walk out of the door there, you're down about 4 feet from the natural grade there. So our concept here is, again, this is a lot of dirt work, obviously, but lower this entire theater gathering place to be at the lower level of the seating in the theater. So you'd be able to walk out of the theater and be right in that gathering space. And then these pickleball courts in that pickleball building would also be at that new lower level, which is the same as the lower level of the theater, all connecting across. And then that would also support, via just some steps or ramps, the pool activity and the fitness activity, all in this cafe. So in the evening, when the theater event's going on, you'd have a little catering area in there to serve, and you'd be able to, about 3,000 square feet, so much more room than you're able to do in the hallway today, to be able to gather before, after, and come into the theater. And then you also this would also support the pickleball / multi-use facility that's this new building here at that lower level, and it connects together the fitness and that building, and it supports activities of the pool, and it creates that third place cafe that you're thinking about as well, potentially, in that thing. And again, what level of cafe that is, how much service we're going to create, are we creating another service outlet, or is it just a self-service outlet, or is it a grab-and-go type outlet? That's all to be determined, but it gives us a placeholder at this site to give us something that we sort of lack today in terms of usage and support at that site. So that's a lot going on there, and I want to stop right there and just, these are a lot of ideas, so bring it back to you guys and see what you think. Yeah, go ahead.
The one thing I see here is no consideration for additional storage for the stage, and that's something that the folks that use the stage are always looking for additional storage, so that would be something to consider.
That's great. Thanks, Walter. We'll get that in. There's room to do it. I just didn't have it yet. Yep.
When you go to newly built Ys and recreational facilities, Eugene, Oregon, I was just there, they wouldn't be building separate tennis courts and separate pickleball things. They would be building a facility that has the flexibility to take down nets, change things, and become both under one roof. So my kind of objection to this is we're building separate maintenance areas, but under one roof, we could have the potential to take care of the ability to flex from tennis to pickleball or to something else. And in, current YMCAs and other places being built, that's exactly what they're doing. With a maximized footprint, you have multiple things that can take place in one space. So the separateness of this is a concern. Elevation, when you mention that, is also a concern because there's people's mountain views that could be being obstructed depending on heights you're going to. So just comments.
I think the mountain view could be handled in the design that we're talking about here with other obviously it has to be, and it's all cost money to do, but it could be done. In terms of what we're showing here on this is exterior tennis courts and interior pickleball courts. So if what you're talking about, Denise, would be a bit of a different program where you're talking about interior everything, right? Which you can see that that's a much bigger building and it would be more transformational than what we're showing. This is more incremental, obviously. And you would probably, if you wanted to do something like you're talking about there, you would probably be thinking about some different kind of solution, which maybe even includes moving the pool or something like that, so you'd have enough room to do it. And we were trying to leave certain facilities in place so that you wouldn't have to, take a facility that works pretty well today and leave that in place and just make improvements around it. I'm not objecting to the idea of doing that. I think that's probably the facts of the matter, that you're probably going to then there may be ways, and just so you know, Dan and I were talking about it earlier, there may be ways to think of that building over here, right? And then more parking back here, but they're not as obvious in terms of flow, functionality, and all that kind of stuff. And to your point, you know, one of the programmatic goals here was to get to 5 tennis courts, and you can sort of see how much room, especially now if they're indoors, you can turn them whichever way you want because you don't have any sun. But the other problem with indoor tennis is that pickleball is relatively low. Indoor tennis is a much higher ceiling, about 10 or 15 feet higher on the inside above the net. So you end up with this thing. So those are all considerations that we'd have to go through and think about. And I don't think we have to solve that today. We just need to, as you're thinking about it amongst yourselves, how big does this master plan need to be here at Desert? And I was, as I said earlier, I was even thinking, does Desert View really need to be a tennis outlet for us? So that's another thing that you guys should, I think we should all think about as a part of how we want our club to be in, our community to be in the future. No audience questions right now, right? Sure. We're gonna take a step back to Mountain View for Denise. Which one do you want to look at, Denise?
The tennis courts.
Tennis courts, okay. This one shows it, or I can go to the aerial. These are the tennis courts here.
So there's 5 tennis courts there, correct?
There are.
And I know we need 5 courts to make leagues, or that's right, correct?
I think so.
Janet?
Usually 3.
Okay. Yeah. So, okay. So now can you go back?
Sure.
So right now, we're living with 3, 4, and 5. 3 at the Preserve, 4 at Desert View, 5 at Mountain.
Here we are at the Desert View.
To the next one.
The next one?
Yeah,
This
that one.
Yep.
So is there a reason that we need 5 here?
We said
Did we
in our last meeting, I took it in my notes, that optimally we would have 5 at the tennis outlets.
Okay.
So that's why I put 5.
Okay.
It could be 3 to 5. We can have flexibility.
We could. This committee gets to decide.
But either way, it'd have to be elevated. Is that what you're saying? I mean, to make that work?
To make this work, potentially, although obviously if you lost these 2, these 2 at the front and had 3 back here, that's an easier outcome, you know.
Easier outcome.
And you know, I think we would need a lot of data in the next phase, Matt, as I hear you saying, though. How many times do we overflow the parking? How many times do we use the entire ballroom? Because when we were doing our tour with Walter, we were hearing this. Oh, we use that once or twice. Or like the wedding lawn, how many weddings? 1 or 2, okay? So we want to design for optimum use, not to the nth possibility of use, okay? And so we would need a lot of data on, how many times does the theater overflow into the street, okay? What does that mean? How many times do we use this entire east-west space? Because, there's might be opportunity there. So data.
But also we got to look at research on future.
Yeah,
because
that's what
I don't
was-
want to live in what is happening today. I want to be here in 10 years, and I don't want people not buying homes here because we didn't think of the future. And that's what I'm afraid of right now.
I think that's what we're trying to, even though the data might not support some of these aspects right now, either in the survey or how you use it today, I think you might find that you're using it more if it was easier to use in some cases, for example, so I agree you want the data to back it up, but at the same time you want to solve the problem. If you know there's a problem there, which I think we do, the parking lot overflows, you want to have at least a solution. Doesn't mean you have to deal with that solution immediately, but it's on the map and you know how you're going to get there eventually.
One other question for you, Glenn, sorry.
Yeah, no worries.
This theater gathering place and sports cafe, is that something in your experience that really a theater should have? Like a gathering place kind of thing that we're not offering today?
I think so, yes. In my experience, most of the theaters I go to have some sort of place that's not just a hallway, you know, that you can gather before intermissions, before and after performances, and
Okay.
meet, greet, talk to each other. In everything that you do in a facility like this isn't about the activity itself. It's about the support that that activity supplies for you to be able to gather together as a community and do things, you know.
So Glenn, if I can add a little insight to that, I know many times we use the Mariposa room
Right.
as the gathering area before they go into the theater. So, you know, and it doesn't look, you know, it's a fitness room, so
Right.
it's not as nice as a nice room that you could have, so.
Chuck, are you sitting over there? Chuck left. Real Foods would tell you that one of the big missed opportunities in our community is the integration of food and beverage with our theater. And Walter knows what I'm talking about. We sat in the same meetings. And so as we look to the future, because everything's about subsidy, right? How do you enhance revenue generation? How do you leverage everything we're already doing to create more opportunities for ourselves? And so our food and beverage consultants have already told us that's a big missed opportunity that we have to be working towards finding solutions to.
And I didn't know that, but I agree with them.
All it takes is money.
I know, it's only money.
However, the solution isn't always necessarily having food down there. You know, their concept was pairing up what we have existing, you know, to support going to dinner, then to the show or whatever, so.
I agree. I can see that as well. But I think that there is definitely a missed opportunity there. It doesn't necessarily have to be food all the time. As a matter of fact, I was thinking of this as more of a catering kitchen operation, or you know, that kind of thing, as opposed to being something that you're supplying a chef there, you know, 4 days a week or whatever. Yeah. So.
And even a kind of place where people who are playing pickleball or tennis or whatever, people are playing pickleball, tennis, could bring their own kind of stuff and have a place where they take a break and they go in that area during the daytime and get some refreshments or something like that. Yeah.
Which is, by the way, that's what we see in a lot of pickleball places, even in places that are relatively, you know, high-end country clubs. A lot of times, particularly around paddleball, warming huts, that, you know, those are wintertime operations that the club is not going to open up a kitchen to serve that, so people bring their own and enjoy that. But that aspect in providing a place for us as a community to do that could be important without having to create a new subsidy, you know, around it necessarily. Or the subsidy is supported by some kind of aspect of, well, we'll open up the catering kitchen when there's enough people there to make it make sense to do that. And we're going to make the food here, by the way, and put it in and bring it down there, and have a finishing operation down there or something like that. So those are all
Ice cream and pastries.
Ice cream and pastry. It can be very simple, but it can, you know, like I go to the Symphony in St. Louis, and it's some caterer has brought in beautiful stuff, and you get that pastry, you know, so. But that space is very important at a symphony or a theater or any kind of thing like that, to be able to have that gathering place for us to be together as a group. Should we move on? And then we can keep coming back, but because this is a really challenging one, and there's a lot going on here, and we have a lot of interesting ideas. But let's talk through it. And by the way, we know that again, we're at the mercy of Google or whoever. We got the aerial photo. We know this is a tennis court again here, but they show 3 pickleball, which we had at one time apparently, or something. I promise you I didn't paint those on this aerial photo. So yeah, obviously, and this is our main entry into the preserve, everybody. Again, the parking seems relatively ample, especially with all the cart parking spaces that we have around the facility. Our service entry is again off to the right-hand side here. This doesn't seem as dramatically undersized to me as what we face here at Mountain View. And it's probably easier to deal with ultimately. And then we have our 3 tennis courts, our cart, which now, by the way, this cart has a cover over it as well, and which is good to protect the carts from the desert sun. And our main entry into the facility, our pool, our really very postage stamp fitness room. Tim and I were there today, and we were just sort of walking by and looking in, and somebody said, "This room is so small," you know. And I'm like, "We get it," you know. That kind of. Our restrooms for that, our restrooms for the golf locker rooms are over here. We have 2 meeting rooms, I think. Our golf shop, our bar and dining, and our kitchen is this little postage stamp right here. So, and then this is all outdoor dining space out here in this bigger space. So you can see, if you even just graphically see, my red dot there is the whole of the kitchen, and it's serving all of this area here. So it's really very undersized for what we're trying to do there. So here's our concept on how to deal with that. And this is the overall map, and I have a blow up next, so bear with me. So, but I think, and you can sort of see, we're not incremental improvements rather than, oh, that's horrible, let's blow it all up and do it all again. That's not our goal here, and that's not, I don't think that's where this committee wants to go, so we didn't come back with a blow it all up plan. But maintaining our pool, maintaining our entry, maintaining our tennis courts, maintaining our parking, and really working as much as possible within the footprint or with what I would call strategic additions to the existing footprint of the club. And the strategic additions are these darker peach color areas on the plan. And I'll blow this up now and talk a little bit about how this could work. Obviously, again, this is sort of a how this could work plan, and thinking about it from that point of view, lots of more detail to come. But starting with the kitchen, again, just as I did here at Mountain View, the existing is about 1,100 square feet, and we're going to go to about 2,300 square feet, which is much more appropriate for an a la carte kitchen serving this kind of facility. It was always small right from the beginning. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to take that central courtyard space, which is mostly covered today, and enclose it, and we're going to eliminate the pool entry from this side. So the pool entry is going to be from what is a pool entry today from this side, coming into the pool restrooms, and then in where the postage stamp size fitness is today would come the poolside cafe. And it's maybe 1,000 square feet, maybe 50 seats at most, and that would be a very casual kind of grab and go type space, or space that supports pool users, fitness users, golfers who are making either a dash to or away from the golf course, all of that kind of stuff. It's something, a casual operation, which really doesn't exist today at the preserve. And then our kitchen is expanded to have direct access into that, and then you have this relatively good view over the pool, and it's sort of an easy to get to operation because you could come right in the front and get to it, or come at it from the pool side, or come at it whichever way you want, really, from that point of view, with good access to the kitchen for service. Then in the clubhouse, as you come in the main clubhouse, again, anything that's white sort of is what it is today, and so just to help you out with that, today there's a front lobby space and some restroom space, some golf shop space, all of that space stays the same. And then basically here is where our bar is in the back of the room, and there's about, I don't know, 5 or 6 seats at the bar that all face inward to the back. So there's this beautiful view there, which is recognized, and then there's even a screen wall between the bar and the view, so you can only sort of see the view from. So anyway, eliminating the bar in that location and opening that all up to create a new grill room that has about 150 seats in it, all hopefully having some aspect of the view from all of those seats, and then relocating the bar into its own location that takes advantage of an indoor-outdoor style bar, so that you could be indoors or outdoors in what is today this outdoor covered patio space here. And then so now we're going to add an indoor-outdoor bar and have a bigger space, and the indoor-outdoor bar will be about 60 seats, something like that. I didn't indicate that there, but that's what it would end up being. And then the third piece of this operation, which you don't handle very well at all at the Preserve today, is it's hard to service an event at whether it's an after golf event or a member guest or some sort of a party or a wedding or any kind of thing, any kind of big event at the facility is hard to handle. Here what we're showing is in the space outside of the windows, doing a new lowered patio, so it won't be in the view of the people who are dining, but below that with a very high pavilion roof over the top of it. It could even be sails or whatever, probably not, but it could be some sort of roof over the top of it to give it cover, but high enough so that, again, it won't be in the view or blocking or creating a dim situation, like blocking too much light into the room. And then now you have this really beautiful, you can double up on that view and have this outdoor pavilion patio right here outside of it, which again catches all of those views. And then that's easily accessible from the golf shop or potentially from the bar, maybe going down some steps or a ramp out of there into that space. And that sort of covers the F&B side of the Preserve. A much better kitchen, a much better grill room, a poolside cafe, better indoor-outdoor space in terms of bar, and a great gathering space for bigger events, but not so big that it's overwhelming the aspect of the club today, because, I'm showing a 3,000 square foot patio. You could easily make that a 4,000 or 5,000 or 6,000. I was trying to be cognizant of, well, what are we going to really try to serve, both in terms of parking, in terms of what we can serve with a kitchen, and all of those kinds of things in that regard, rather than making it oversized, try to keep it in scale to the existing building. Then the other piece that we're looking at is today those meeting rooms are right in this location, and we've taken our fitness away, remember? So our orange bubble is our fitness, and we're going from about 1,000 square feet to about 3,250 square feet, so 3 times as much fitness activity at this facility. And again, doubling up on fitness, right? So we've got fitness at all the different facilities, and just realize that. And then here we're taking our meeting rooms, which are taking that view, and they're not really necessary for a view in a meeting room where everybody's looking at each other across tables. They're not looking, hopefully not looking out the window when I'm talking, right? That kind of thing. So that's more of an internally focused type space, taking that exact same space across the hall beside the restrooms, and then potentially maybe even adding some fitness and tennis changing rooms that sort of are separate from I don't know if that's necessary or not, but that was an option. And then we have the fitness activity right here. The idea is today you have those fitness rooms over here, but those will just all be pool rooms, really. So this really gives you something that supports this tennis and fitness. Whether or not you could use those, you probably could use those golf, but the golf locker rooms, changing rooms, but I just put it there just in case. So at that point, so that's a maybe sacrificial, but the idea of 3,250 square feet of fitness, all picking up that great view, which is so outstanding all along this side here. So the golf shop stays where it is, and we get the views in those spaces. And this is all new addition to the new additional footprint to the building here and there. So expanding the building. Some of that's under existing roof, by the way, and where that breezeway is between the fitness and the clubhouse. Stop there for a minute. Looking for comments, questions.
My question would be the golf shop. I think wasn't well thought through when they put it there. It doesn't attach to the playing golf, access to golf. I mean, I would like to see golf put someplace else.
Okay.
I mean, it's not user-friendly at all. And before we lived here, to get to the golf shop and then to get down to where starter might be, I mean, they're not connected at all right now. And if we leave it there, that's disappointing to me.
Let's talk about that a little bit, because I didn't perceive that in my tours of the space or in our previous discussions of it. So help me out with that a little bit on this view about where would be a good place for a golf shop in this facility? Where, is this First Tee? Where's First Tee here? Help me out. Is it off the page somewhere?
No, it's right up there.
This is First Tee here?
And then the putting green and stuff like that is
Further up the hill?
well, down.
Down.
Because you're going downhill. So there's bathrooms and everything there. Honestly, like, that's more logical to me than,
And so,
it's just so disconnected.
so more of a remote golf shop?
Well,
Up.
it would be where the golf actually is played.
Right, remote from the clubhouse,
Yes.
but in its own location.
Take the golf shop out of the clubhouse.
Right.
And make it more so it's connected to the golf course.
Up here somewhere, which I'll have to change my aerial view to be able to see that, right?
But
Okay.
there's bathrooms down there and everything else. I mean, that's more logical to me than.
Yeah. Something to think about with that is too, though, is outside play, you typically wouldn't go from a parking lot and have to go forever to get to a golf shop.
True.
So it's one of those that this would take a lot of, I mean, I think it's worth talking about and looking at a couple of options, I think, for next month.
Yep.
Because, you know, and I remember conversations with, you know, previous golf pros saying,
This button right
you know, it's so hard when you have outside play not to treat your outside play with, oops, with that welcoming feeling. And so it's something.
But I got to tell you, when we first moved here, like, I didn't know where it was anyway.
Right.
There's one little tiny sign, and if you miss that tiny sign, I'm in a meeting room, I'm checking in for dinner.
Totally agree. Where it is today makes, there's,
That tennis court?
well, yeah, realistically, yeah, near a parking lot, on your way, there's where the golf carts parking area is. There's some spaces up in that area that may make more sense than down on the first tee or down by the practice range too.
Wait a second.
Can we agree that it's not good where it is?
I think so.
Well, that's, I didn't pick that up, so that's, you know, in my tours or whatever. It didn't seem as bad as what, but I believe you. What is what? These old pickleball courts here? They're probably gone.
They are gone. We tore those out. We used to be football courts.
Oh, what is your picture, sir?
I don't know. When did you tear those out, Walter?
2014.
Really? Is that old? Wow. I don't know what's wrong with Google.
So Glenn, when you're explaining this, are you actually enlarging the footprint of the building?
Yes.
Okay, all right. So, you know, the whole thing with the preserve is, you know, how many more lots could Robeson acquire, right? And the land up there is astronomical. So the question I have is, you know, we're trying to work around the spaces that we have, but I also think we need to look for opportunity, putting pressure on our builder, Robeson, that if he continues to expand, we won't be able to have Denise the future because we will outgrow as he continues to build, right? So, you know, you look at that back parking lot there at the bottom of this picture. The only thing that goes there is sand for the golf course. I've never seen anybody park there, okay? So, I mean, we need to start looking at spaces, you know. There's where he has the model home space and he has his parking lot, okay? If he's going to continue to push the boundaries up there, we have to also have a business deal where we start to say, if you're going another 100 lots, we need this lot for a possible amenity addition. You know, so I understand we're here, but I don't know how soon we could outgrow this, especially at the preserve with his building. Just a thought.
Yeah, but that's disconnected.
No, I know,
Yeah,
investing dollars and you don't want to redo dollars.
well, but again, the thought process is thinking forward, as we were talking earlier today about, let's not talk about just where we are today, but let's talk about what is the future, right? And it's hard to guess what Robeson's going to do other than the fact that he's going to die someday because he's 90 years old already.
I've discussed this concern with Jack Sarsam. He was the vice president for operations at Robeson. Jack tells me there is nothing on the drawing board to expand ground at Saddlebrook for more lots. They have nothing on the planning horizon today. Flash to bang from idea generation to putting a shovel in the ground is a long time.
Any other thoughts on the preserve?
Let me have one more thought for you, and that is potentially you were saying that spot, maybe that spot, that's close to these golf cart parking spaces.
Yep.
And on the way, it doesn't have a great view.
And less upsetting to the tennis club.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's, I can't tell you how important it is not to have anybody upset at us.
The formal dining area of the preserve, that's basically staying the same.
Well, it's in the same location with the same views, except that I'm
Taking the
expanding the bar.
Yeah.
I'm taking the bar and putting it into the dining room,
Yeah.
with the idea that that screen wall would come down and that upper terrace would turn its view so that it's looking over the people on the lower terrace and taking the view as well. So it'd still be terraced, upper terrace and a lower terrace, and then actually a new lower terrace outside of that on the outside. But everybody would be more looking at the view rather than the way you are today. On the inside of that semicircle, you're mostly facing into the bar, which is you're basically looking at the bartender.
So just so I'm clear, the new patio with the pavilion cover is exterior,
Correct.
and there's no way to access that from inside? It would be exterior to get to, or would there be stairs or an elevator or to get there?
Yeah, you would be able to get there from the inside. We just don't have it designed yet. But I would think from right here where this bar would be, there'd be a way to get to it. There'd be a way from the exterior here to get to it. We've got that little private, private dining. It's not really private, but the side dining room, you might be able to come through that dining room and go through down a stair or a ramp or something like that to get to it. Well, all that's to come. We would get to that, assuming there's a way to do that, Denise, though.
Yeah, as Glenn and the architecture department design these things, again, we start with very big concepts with these bubbles, and then as we come to agreement as to say, yes, this looks good and all, then we start to refine, and then we add things in like staircases and doors and all those kinds of things.
That in your mind, that's exterior.
Yeah, great.
Hey, Glenn, I have got to endorse your idea about the golf shop being on the corner of that building. And that frees up space, this fitness and tennis changing rooms. If
Right.
you made the meeting rooms where the golf shop is,
Oh, that'd be cool.
see
Yeah.
if you can play with that idea.
Absolutely.
But I like that corner of that building. That's
Well, either that or make the fitness center even bigger.
That'd be an option as well. The fitness center could go into where the golf shop is, potentially.
And then put the golf shop at the end.
wow. We're going to get real fit now.
Yeah. No, I like your idea, because you could push the golf shop up into that corner right there, potentially. Yeah. Then you have some view, and yeah, right, potentially. So this is what we're supposed to be doing, everybody. This is all good stuff, and frankly, these are, as Dan said earlier, there's going to be some off-the-cuff ideas or some whatever reactions today, but you're going to go home and think about all this, and it's going to matriculate and sort of brew in your mind a little bit, and so you'll get that together and have some more comments for us, which is what we want to do, so that we're you know, we don't want anything, and by the way, this is just the first step of the process, so you'll feed those comments back to us. It's an iterative process. I'm going to make iterations and changes. You're going to look at it again, and we're going to go through this a number of times until you start to feel really comfortable with these long-term solutions. And what will happen is as areas become more important for us to look at, for example, you guys are all getting together and most of your comments are coming around things at this clubhouse, for example. We'll spend more time on that clubhouse and get into more detail on it and leave other things that are less important as big blocks on the map to deal with later, you know, that kind of thing. So we'll, and as things become more resolved, other things may become more important. That's just part of the process. It's each thing has to have its own time to sort of be thought about, be considered, and be revealed to ourselves and decide what we think is important. Because ultimately, us as a group, we are going to be in front of the board saying, board, we thought about this a lot. We thought a lot about, and by the way, it's fine to be thinking about things that are outside of the confines of what I've thought about here today and shown you today, because we want that. We want to be able, when we go to the board, to say, well, we thought about that, but we decided not to do it because. So ultimately, some good ideas may come up that either we're going to incorporate or they were good ideas, but there were reasons we didn't do them, right?
So Glenn, as an architect, what you're recommending in these is you're recommending additions and reconfigurations over new build. And that must be a choice of economy, is that correct?
It is a choice of economy. It's a choice. It's a number of choices, but one of the choices is economy. A second choice is what you have today is actually, in large part, there's a lot of things that are really good about it. There's existing structure there that is, like in this room, for example. It's a big room. It's got movable walls at work, and you know, it could be easily, you could spend money renovating it and make it nicer, but there's no reason necessarily, unless you're just Mr. Got Rocks, to go and build a new one of these, right? You've got it. Why go build a new one, right?
So if we were to say, do this right now, okay, how many tens of millions are we talking?
Well, it's a lot of money. There's no doubt it's a lot of money, but we don't, the money, everything that we're looking at here is at minimum 5 years from now, so there's really no way to tell you what it's going to cost, because it's just, you know, and we don't know what's going to be most important and what's least important, and we don't know how big certain solutions are going to be. For example, trails. Well, trails could be a $200,000 solution or a $2 million solution. We don't know. Not yet. There's a lot of work to be done on that, you know. You're looking at me like, you shouldn't have said that, Glenn.
No, it's,
done drawing all this up,
Yeah.
you are going to give us a cost estimate in today's dollars.
Absolutely.
yeah. So you get us some ranges.
Absolutely. It needs to be in ranges, and we need to do that, but it's too early to do that today. And because you guys are going to think about it, it's a lot, just take it from me, it's a lot of money, but it would be a lot more money to do it where you would say, okay, well, let's just tear that down and start over again. That's a lot more money than what I'm proposing in these. So there's a sense of economy that I've brought to this that I always try to bring to it first. Can we solve the problems that we have today in an economic way by making either additions or renovations or things like that versus some wholesale, complete reinvention of every single piece? Because there may be things that we could do better in this site if we wholesale reinvented it. You know, we might move that service entry off the view. We might move the pool into a place with a better view. There's all kinds of things we could do that you could think, oh, that'd be fun to do. But are they that important that you would spend that kind of money to do it? I don't think you would. And so we don't want to bring those solutions to you and then everybody be disappointed.
All right, you're talking too much. You got more slides. Let's go.
15 minutes.
Thank you so much, Dan. Appreciate when somebody keeps me on track. There's not that much more to go. This is our pickleball. We don't have any new solutions for pickleball. It's relatively new at the site and seemed to be adequate. The only thing that came up in our previous meeting was, could there be more courts? And we walking that space, there's not like, you can see property lines and other facilities and other people's property. It's not like there's a place that you could get a lot more pickle. There's maybe, you know, it's not really, doesn't seem like it's feasible. And there's other places in the map that we're thinking about pickleball as well. The nice thing about this facility, though, is it's a centralized facility. And frankly, another option for covered pickleball would just be do it here. So we could think about that, you know, just cover some of those courts. Now, this is maybe a little bit overstating it to say proposed, but this is an idea that's on the table anyway, to say that we have an existing golf course maintenance facility and, what do we call it, property owner, what is it called? CAM facility. The CAM facilities, these 3 sheds or 4 sheds down here. This is our golf course facility maintenance. And really, primarily what's in that is some it's mainly rats, okay. That's, I'll take that. It's, you know, it's your mechanic area is what I was trying to say. And then this is the dumpster area, right? So they can, this is actually nice. There's a lot of clubs that, or facilities that don't have this, where the dumpster can roll down in and they can throw things over into the dumpster. So that's a nice facility. But what you lack here is a good chemical area. There's a bit of a wash-off area. There is some, and you don't, and you know, all of the kinds of things. Everything is just tight, right? You can see parking is tight. There's not a good area for doing all of that kind of stuff. And so, and one thing that we always try to do when we design these facilities is separate the personal automobiles from the main work yard where people are driving equipment. It just creates all kinds of issues with somebody drives into somebody's car and all that kind of stuff. So if you can keep the personal automobiles of the staff separated from where the equipment is, you can create some space to do that. And there is a concept here where it shows the parking being relocated largely out of the stuff. There is some cantilevered covered parking here, which could be, and then a new CAM building, and then in addition to the existing building here. Now, a lot of these ideas are previously generated ideas, but I think it's worth thinking about that these are all on the table as possibilities for things to do. And you can get to you have about a 4,000 square foot existing building here. You could get about a 2,500 square foot addition, which would be mainly a place, and obviously this building would have to be completely renovated when you would do that, but you would add to the building, renovate this building, add a new building here, and then do some, and then I think we're lacking soils bins, but it looks like they were trying to add a couple of soils bins right in that area as well. So added parking, new building, and all that kind of stuff. So this is a big project as well, everybody, and you can spend a lot of money in these kinds of facilities. And then there's another, and this sort of shows a blow up of what you would get in terms of some offices and some restrooms and a break room and all that kind of stuff. And another blow up of that kind of thing in the CAM building, showing the offices and the restrooms and a break room there. Again, this does not necessarily address the issue of having one CAM building that's completely at one end of the entire community. So that may need to be thought about some more. There's not a lot of, I think in this facility, there's not a lot of room to grow just because of outside property lines or something. We have a little room to grow at the other facility, but this is our existing one at the preserve. You can see again, there's about a 4,000 square foot building there, I think. Another good dumpster area, a wash pad. You can see fuel being delivered here into our fueling station. They do have 3 soils bins here. There's some other kinds of space here. And again, our staff parking is just within the facility, so you can see our equipment is parked outside, which is not good. And our staff is parked in the same areas with the equipment. Here we could have some cover, which could be car parking or it could be overnight parking or covered parking for equipment. And then we have an added building here, our 4,000 square foot existing building with an addition off of it. And so again, a complete renovation. Ultimately, this would be a complete renovation of this site with new buildings, renovating existing facilities. It's another big project that lurks out there for us to deal with. Again, one of the addition allows us to take care of our staff better with break rooms and offices and things that just don't, and restrooms, things that just don't exist today for our staff, who are our most important people, who keep us safe and maintain our facilities, and we don't help them in any way in that regard here. And those are the ideas that have sort of been generated to date on that. Again, stopping here for questions or comments or anything else that we want to talk about in these areas. And they're a bit, it's usually I don't design these areas in committees, just so you know. Usually they get designed, they're so technical that, you know, we just need to, they just sort of have to be what they have to be. So there's not a lot of room for committee interpretation of what needs to happen. And what you have here in terms of design is a good step on the way to having a much better facility. The thing that the committee could help with is this whole notion of, are we going to have one CAM location, or should there be a separate location somewhere else? And that's again gets back to our whole, how many facilities are we going to have, and how's that going to work for the community?
Yeah, I also think about parking as one of those kind of items.
Right.
And I know we've talked about the fact that you've got traffic in the community at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the noises that are associated with it. And if you notice it right across the street, in both locations, you've got homeowners and, you know, 6 a.m. trash dump, you know, bang, 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 and getting the work started. I gotta believe that somebody's heard complaints.
Well, I'm sure Ray could tell us.
I live right by that facility, this one, and they don't start at 6. They start at 4:30 and 3.
Well, I'm glad I don't live there.
Yeah, we weren't expecting that, but that is, just so you know.
Yeah.
I know, Cindy, when we toured it, you mentioned that, and I have to tell you, my immediate question, I know it's not an easy answer, but if you were the residents living around that place, I don't know how you could tolerate it, to be honest with you, and how it hasn't devalued your property. There is gasoline, there is high wall, there is noise, there's early start. The one at the preserve, when I went up and walked around it, at least there's houses across the street, but on 3 sides of it, then the road, there's not. And I question, you know, I think we need to do better by these residents and not enlarge it here, but maybe find a place for the golf equipment and then the CAM equipment, and not make this a superstructure. Because, again, you've got gas. I called the county. They said this is zone CR3. It's never been gotten a variance. So CR3 is single residential. How we got from single residential to this is a concern. And so my concern is we need to get these people a better building. There's no doubt about it with what we saw there. But we have to think about, is this the right place? And if it's not, where the heck are we going to find another space? But be the residents. Okay, the gasoline on the top right is across the street from a house. It's not even, it's just the length of the road from that person's house. Look at the house to the left. It's practically on the wall. So, again, we have to just think about our residents. I know if this was in Unit 49, people would be having a cow, okay? And if we make it bigger, it's going to make the problem worse. But the more you put on it, the more busy it becomes, okay? There are residents there, that's all I'm saying. Would you want to be the one that lives there? I don't think so.
Go back to your mountain.
Okay.
Walter, you and I got work to do.
Which one do you want?
Go back to, I want to see the big hill right there. I don't know how big that hill is, but it's huge, because I drive from there over to 10. And Denise has been in my head since she went on the tour. And so I'm trying to figure out space too. I don't know how that big hill thing goes back, right? And it's sitting where we'd have to figure out how we get access to it with POVs and get our equipment out of it. But it's something I wanted to sit down with you and take a look at. But Glenn, you need to do your eye in the sky thing. But that's a piece of ground that I think has potential for golf and camp.
I was looking up at those spots too, Matt, because again, you know, we have to think there's chemical storage there. There's a lot of stuff there. Okay.
That piece of ground gets away from homes. And so now there's a lot of groundwork to be done, a lot of bulldozing and all that kind of stuff, and you're going to want to do something to try to hide it the best you can. But that's way outside of my pay grade. And,
The interesting thing about that is you really can't, if you're behind the arts and crafts or any of this area here, there is no view of that area except for your new road that you put in, right? Because you would see it along this cart path here, but from anywhere in here, there is no view of that area. I've walked that area several times. So there could be some potential there. For example, that green is sunk down below the hill, and as is that green, you know. And
I throw that out because Denise, I just want you to know, I have a reputation that I don't listen. It's not true.
Well, no, and it's not just the safety of the residents. When we were there the day of the tour, okay, where you come in, Glenn, where the gas is, okay, the gate on the far side is locked and blocked. If we had a fire in there with the wall we have now that high around that place, you're literally talking about a fireball, okay? There's one fire extinguisher hanging on the building, okay? And that's it. And so it's safety all the way around. It behooves us to find a hunk of land. Yes, it's more dirt, but it's safety for the employees, it's safety for the residents.
I just want to call it that I think it's embarrassing as a resident for what we think those employees are working in that environment. And if we had residents go look at it, they would be astonished and embarrassed themselves. So yes, we got to think about the residents, but we better start thinking about these employees, because that is horrific. Horrific.
Great, let's move on.
it's your turn. It's back to you, Kevin. Hang on a second. I'm going to move it up.
This has been great so far. We're going to move forward to what we have planned next. So the goals and timeline is we're going to refine concepts and begin to form consensus on a board presentation, which we will have scheduled in October. So that's what we'll do at the August meeting. We're going to come back with revised concepts that we're going to take notes and hear from you and work on these plans and revise the plans and come back again. Continue to refine till we get it just the way you want it. So between now and July 26th, Dan's going to be accepting comments from everyone so that he can send them to us before he gets out of town so that we can revise the plans. So that in September, we'll go back again, the master plan, review the first draft of the presentation to the board to see what that looks like at that time. And then in October, we'll present to the board. It's all right? I think we're going to have member feedback along the way in there too. We need to schedule how we're going to do that, right? So our next step says we will write up the notes from today and distribute those to everyone. We're going to revise the concepts based upon this conversation and the input we've got over the next 10 days or so. And then our next meeting is scheduled for August 20th when we'll come back and review everything there. Just as we finish, we want to go around the room very quickly. We'll say lightning round. We've heard from almost everybody here. We just want to make sure. Tell us very quickly something you really liked about the plan or something that you don't like about the plan. Janet, let's start with you.
I really like the preserve plan, and I think if we started with that, then, you know, you have your dining when you do Mountain View, but
Right.
you have the dining now at the preserve because it's larger. You have the fitness center addressed. I really like that one. I don't live in the preserve personally, so I'm not arguing for myself for
Got it.
something close, so.
Okay? Thank you. Denise?
I actually like what was developed here from Mountain View. I think that's a great improvement to where we are today. I can't say I love the Desert View path. I don't really like the idea of, I know that slightly elevated tennis courts. I'd certainly want to do a study on how many people are even using those tennis courts before we spend a ton of money. I love the idea about the cafe and the meeting area. I think that's a great idea. I just would want to do a lot more homework on that area before we invest a ton of money there.
Thank you. Cindy?
I agree with Denise on the tennis courts here, because as a former tennis player, we did not use those that often because of the sun. And so if you switch that, but I don't think we need 5 of them, because they still have enough room to have the USTA come in and play. So I don't think we could better utilize some of that facility, that part of it. And I, of course, like moving the...
Like what?
I like moving the maintenance away from my house.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. But that parking lot that you have added in, those people across from the street are not going to like that. They're going to have a fit.
Right.
So.
Yep. Great, thank you.
2 quick comments. I think up at the preserve, there's some space where those 2 old pickleball courts were, potential for a building in that area. And the other thing I think maybe short on is expanding arts and crafts. Even though you put a second story on the arts and crafts, I think our arts and crafts facilities are very restrained.
Yeah, I agree about the Desert View piece. There's just something about elevating it and that the tennis courts to the side there. Again, as I mentioned, the modern Y buildings or even clubs like ours, if you put everything outside, then you have to deal with the maintenance of that. If you can put everything under a cover and use it for multiple sports, that seems to me more economical. I do think that one thing that was missed at Desert View too, though, is the fitness center is an adequate space, but the stretching area is not and might be viewed as a little unsafe because people are using weights in the same area that you stretch in the corner. Other than that, I mean, the concerns are obviously the money and how this could come back. And I can't say enough, as I've said to Matt, about that CAM since we toured it. It is an absolute disaster.
Yeah, agreed on the golf and CAM maintenance facility. I'd like to see it moved. I don't have a good place for that at this point, but someplace centrally located between the preserve and Mountain View. Outdoor space, outdoor dining space, we saw some of that. I'm not sure if we saw enough for me, but I think there's definitely a trend toward outdoor dining space. We have, other than the 3 months that we're in right now, we have perfect climate for outdoor dining. So just give that a little more thought, perhaps.
Yeah, Ray, just so everybody, so you know, I think that kind of thing can show up more in the detail, because I think we're thinking of some movable glass walls in places where you get some sort of indoor-outdoor dining and stuff like that. So, but it's a good point, and we'll have it more detailed in the future.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And then multi-use facility. We had a committee here a couple of years ago that Sean actually headed up, and I thought the concepts were really good, but we really didn't have a place for that established either. There was talk about maybe at Desert View or up at the preserve, but You know, to Denise.
On the CAM lot, when you move the CAM building.
Yeah, well, maybe. To Denise's point, you know, something that can be easily converted purpose-wise. I think those work really well.
Don't touch the pickleball courts unless you're going to cover them. They're perfect the way they are. The hill behind that everybody is so excited about, we looked into that for pickleball courts. It was going to be a monumental expense to move that, right, Walter? The dirt. I mean, like, amazing, because that would have been the perfect place. Move the dirt, put the pickleball courts there, it would be quiet. So I think that's maybe a little out of our price range. And we need a multi-use activity center. Take those 5 tennis courts. I know tennis people are going to have a heart attack, but calm down. Take the 5 tennis courts by the Desert View. You need 3 tennis courts to run a tournament, because that's what they kept telling us all along when we wanted to borrow their courts for pickleball. So we only need 3, but we don't need those 5 down there. Raise it, put your multi-use activity center there so you have the parking underneath. Because the parking was the biggest problem when we wanted to put the multi-use activity center there. And I have all the drawings for the multi-use activity center in my bag.
Exactly what you were saying. I was going to say that, perfect idea. But everything else I liked. I liked the preserve, everything else was fine. The 3 courts would be perfect. Yeah.
Great input, everyone. I really appreciate that because it's thoughtful. You're going to think about it some more, and you're going to have some more ideas. And I would say that, you know, we're between a rock and a hard place with our CAM and our golf course maintenance facilities, obviously. And when we're in that situation, you often find yourself making comparisons between, well, how much does it cost to buy 10 houses versus how much does it cost to excavate land? You know, there's things like that could happen. You could buy all of the houses around those existing ones and give yourself a bigger buffer zone, for example, and give yourself more room to work. So those are not incremental solutions like I've been talking about. They're transformative solutions, but you may be in a place that you have to start thinking about transformative solutions with the golf course maintenance facilities, based on what the committee is telling me today and what you're talking about. And if you're doing that, are they in the right place? Probably not, right? It'd be better to have more centralized facilities. So that's just something, I just put it out there because we faced this before and there's ways of getting there, but you're going to be starting to balance big cost against big cost because there's probably no little cost way. I mean, you could make incremental improvements there, but they're so incremental that there's no low cost relocation strategy. Right. All right, that's it for me.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you in a month.
Yep.
We'll send you all our input by the 26th. And I would vote we take a 5-minute break. Yes,
Absolutely.
Hallelujah.
Back to our community piece here, and then before we get done, we'll want to make sure we do a closure. How do we get the thoughts that are going to pop into our brain in the next couple of days, and/or from the community input that we may receive? How do we capture that so that we can get that data to to Glenn and Kevin by the 26th, so that they have enough time to try some of the things that they may not have heard already. So, community, I'm going to open it up to you, please. There's a mic right behind Matt's thing there. I did set it up there so that we just want to make sure we capture it so that we can get it on the video. But Matt, well, either way, is it okay? Yeah, well, you can comb your hair on your walk up or something, but yeah, one of the failings I think from our last meeting was we didn't capture all of the notes. So most of us captured a lot of little notes on our pieces of paper, but we didn't have it fully captured. So that's why we have Matt and Sean up here, but please, your name, unit, and have at it.
Mona Devine, Unit 45, Lot 100. I have about 5 items. I'll just run through each of them quickly. There is land available at the pickleball area. Cost was negotiated down by a number of us with Robeson during the preserved pickleball era, so that could be considered for a reasonable purchase if you pressure him enough, again. That allows you to keep the pickleball either centrally located, which is important for social activities in the pickleball courts. There is land available at the pickleball area. Just beyond the pickleball area, Robeson owns that water thing, the water building. No, there's that older building back directly, it's adjacent to the pickleball court, so it's in ideal location. And informally, he had offered it to the HOA. We pressured him down into about half price. That was also at the time we pressured him to donate to the pickleball club, a couple $100,000 or whatever it was. Yeah. Number 2, enclosing the terrace areas for expansion, that's something that we had discussed before several years ago, and I think that's a good idea. Indoor pool is not mentioned at all, but that was number 3 is the indoor pool area was not mentioned at all, but was very high on the previous survey and this one also. Any indoor sports or pool area or indoor pickleball should incorporate an indoor walking track. Those are very important in the new communities, fairly easy to incorporate for low cost inside the building. So if you're going to enclose something, make a short track. It's very hot here, and even though it's short, most of our people are interested in very short walks anyway. So that helps go toward the trails and tracks at the same time. Simulators were seriously considered a couple of years. Number 5. Simulators were seriously considered a couple of years ago. One of the things that when we discussed it was to make it cross over to all users, not just golf. And there's a lot of different simulators for like indoor cycling, all those type of things. But particularly when you're talking about indoor golf or indoor sports simulators, the things that make them usually successful in communities is to incorporate drinking with it. Indoor drinking, sports, casual gathering spaces near the simulators. Otherwise, you're just building something kind of for the pros to offer lessons. So, in my mind, very limited, unless you do it right. So if you're going to do it right. I think that's it.
Great, thank you.
The land behind the pickleball area, if you're not going to use it for pickleball or something, land we need. Maintenance facility is something else you could consider there if it's large enough.
That's the Dan Lineker plan. Okay, was taking the water facility and putting CAM down there.
So it could be considered for a number of different things. Yeah. Make sure you pressure Robeson because you got it to come down in the price at that time. I think you could.
Not in the water area, but there is land up above the pickleball parking area, right where that cable.
Where Orbital is.
Yeah, where Orbital is.
Okay, we'll set up a meet with Jack Sarson.
Steve Lindquist, Unit 45, Lot 98. Just two questions.
Are these questions, Steve, or are they stuff for the?
They're questions.
Okay, so I'm not writing it down.
No, it's okay. Two questions. I think, Denise, you mentioned that there were some zoning questions or issues with the current facilities we use for maintenance in both areas or just one?
No, I think I mentioned it to Walter. It's the one off Amberwood.
So it was never approved? Or?
No, I'd asked Walter, Steve, to investigate that because my call to the county says we never got a variance to make it anything other than CR3 single-family residential. I gave the info to Walter, and he's going to look it up.
Oh, so we might want to be careful who we talk to about that then, huh? Okay. Timeline. I didn't see anything on the timeline that said where the community was going to get involved in this.
Welcome to the community involvement.
Well, no. I'm talking about the whole community, not 10 or 20 or 30 people. I mean,
Steve, we are developing a plan to provide to the board, okay, for future use by a future committee that does not exist yet. The community's opportunity to engage on every project will be enormous downstream. Okay, it's our job to put together the best ideas that we can generate in these task force meetings, put them on paper. There's nothing for the community to vote on. If anybody was interested, you met me outside and said, I'm shocked there aren't more people here.
I was.
This is the way planning goes.
Yeah.
Okay, no one's interested in the planning, they're interested in the outcomes.
In the slide deck, though, it did talk about capital funds going forward, and it had a 2030 date on it. That's the first time that we're really thinking that big projects are likely to start happening. So it's the process. The process has to start with developing scope and all that detail work that Glenn was talking about. So, today we'd say financially it's 5 years from now before we were even looking at some of these big projects.
One of the things, this is just another comment I just was thinking about. These surveys that have been done in the past, which has kind of started this whole thing, as the early part of it. I was looking at what the things that you were showing up there, what people thought was important or wasn't important. Unfortunately, often the community is not involved like they should have been up front. And what we end up with is the only thing that receives the important is what people are talking about at that time in those surveys. So it depends who's on the survey, what kind of information you're going to get at that point in time. I don't know what the better way is to do it.
I think you're hitting a really hard point there, Steve, that I think we all struggle with a little bit is everybody seems to be happy and not involved until it affects them.
Right.
And then it's big deal, right? So you're hitting it. We don't know how to do it either, I don't think.
And that's the reason my first question was, when does the community get involved? Because it seems like the community never gets involved until we're way down the road, and now we need some money to make it happen, and all of a sudden everybody's up in arms and et cetera. I don't have a good answer for it. Well, my answer is I come to these meetings, but I'm only one person. We need a lot of people here.
Well, I know.
I understand. Well, part of it's the time of the year, too. Don't forget, 40% of the community's gone. They're not even here.
Yeah.
So.
But, the thing on the walking path is interesting. Carol mentioned it to me at the break. When we did that survey, the golf courses, the thing on the walking paths is very interesting because when we did the survey last summer, we hadn't opened the golf courses to walking, right? So you wonder now, if you ask that question today, would it be the same, right? So, you know, I can see, not our group, because we're the dreamers, but the next group, as they start working and identifying projects, I don't think you want a survey. You want people to kind of rank order. What, if you had to pay for this, which you will, what would be your first choice? What would be your second choice? What would be your
Well,
third?
I agree with her. I think like we should be at some point sending something out again and saying, these are the top 10 things that this group came up with, and this is the dollar amount that right now is estimated. And we all know, oh boy, do we have smart people about money around here, that in 5 years it's going to be a very different number. But this is somewhat at the ballpark of what we're thinking that that project might cost and the need of it. Because I tell you that if our community doesn't figure out that we need to get this CAM and this maintenance thing figured out, we have very shallow people here. Because that has got to get addressed. Has got to get addressed. And it's not pretty, and it's not going to, oh, what is it going to be great for me? No, it's not for you. It's not for you. It's for the community. And if we want to keep employees in the future of our community, we're going to need those things.
Janine Grippo, Unit 49, Lot 109. Yeah, I love dreaming. I think you're right. Let's go back to the community. But besides just what is basically a high-level cost range, because that's what we're going to get, estimate. I think we also have to ask our consultants, McCann Group, to actually help us understand what the continuing operations costs will be when you add a new building or this or that. So we have, because let's face it, the actual building of the new stuff is going to be out of the capital improvement fund. But in the future, we'll need larger reserves to maintain these newer facilities, multi-use buildings, extra pickleball courts, whatever. So let's ask McMahon to help us with understanding the ongoing operating costs too. That's just my question, comment, suggestion.
Shoot, I forgot one other thing I was going to ask him about that he never really brought up, solar. So we live in Arizona. I didn't really see him bring up solar, that we need to figure out other ways that we can pay for some energy that's going to be more expensive as the future goes.
My name is Bill Mead. I live in Unit 45, Lot 118, I think. One of the thoughts I had was, what do people mean when they say a trail?
Yes.
There's a ton of places to walk around here. I walk around Ridgeview sometimes. I don't see very many people there. It's not like it's crowded. So I think people may mean something different than sidewalks. And I think that's important to look at because it's always been one of the highly desired items. The other thing I think about, and maybe it's because of my age, and I look around this group, I don't think you're in my age group, frankly. I'm 87 years old. I'm not going to be here when this is done. I'm going to be at La Posada or I'm going to be in the ground. And so I have a different attitude that you may have. I see this plan, as lovely as it is, comprehensive, is pie in the sky. And I think we need some kind of a staging recommendation. How do you move into this? Because I don't know what it's going to cost, $30, $40 million probably, I don't know. No? But I don't know, I'm not a contractor. But I think there just needs to be something more than just this grandiose plan for us to talk about.
Yeah, Bill, my response is it's all about expectations management. You're right. 87-year-old isn't going to look at this place the way a 68-year-old does. We all know that. I had lunch today with somebody been here 22 years. They look at all of these kind of conversations as much like you just said. I'm going to be at La Posada or dead. It reminds me of a conversation I had with Dan Linegar one day when I talked about long-range planning for the golf courses. And I told him the name of our golf plan was Vision 2050, and he looked at me and said, I'll be dead in 2050. And I said, you're right, but the golf course in Saddlebrook will still be here. Saddlebrook's going to be here in 10 years, and Saddlebrook's going to be here in 20 years. The problem we're solving for is Saddlebrook going to be a place that people want to move to in 10 years or in 20 years? And so the challenge for all of us, and especially for the 7 board members, our obligation is to say, we got to take care of today, and we got to take care of all this common property that we own. And Janine brings up a very good point. Everything you add adds cost, right? And the residents always shoulder the cost. And so you have to have a very pragmatic, thoughtful way of getting to the future. And so what we pointed out here today was the kitchen in the Mountain View facility today is inadequate today. That means it will be inadequate in 10 years. How do we get from now to 10 years and it's not inadequate? The same thing with the preserve. Kitchens are a lot more important to me than workout facilities because I got to eat before I get to the workout facility, okay, or after I'm at the workout facility. And so my point is, it's a journey of continuous improvement. And you can only eat the elephant one bite at a time, and you have to be thoughtful about how you go down that road. My good friends, the Lexels, just spent 2 weeks with no air conditioning in 105, 110 degree weather. That's right. She showered every day because her casita was air conditioned because she just built it last year. My point was, we just had to put a new air conditioning unit in the home. We're all going to have to do it. We're all going to put new roofs on our home. Some people make additions on their homes. And so the real challenge for our community is how do we put thoughts on paper that allow thoughtful people to move forward and say, we all know what's in front of us in the next 5 years. There's no secret. It's been out there for the last 9 months. We've got to get through the preserve golf course renovation. Board has no choice. The board has to devise strategy to make that happen. Community had a big vote. Problem didn't go away. And so we know that we cannot get at anything that we're talking about here today, tomorrow, anywhere in the next 5 years. We've got to win. The challenge for our community, the strategic challenge for the next 5 years, is to get us through 2029. On the other side of that, we can start to think about the challenges associated with this plan. And that's why getting 5,000 people in Saddlebrook HOA2 all excited and crazy about a plan that won't even get discussed for the next 5 years makes me smile. And so there's a lot of thoughtful work that needs to go here, but it's part of the process to build a dynamic community that's going to survive time in the competition. There are other options out there for people to buy property in southern Arizona. We all want to make sure our property gets bought when we want to sell it. And so the only thing that I'm saying is some people have been here for 22 years and not much has changed. They came here, everything built was brand new, and they enjoyed it. But look what's happened at the preserve. I've only been here 10 years. Look what's happened in the preserve in the last 10 years. Our reality changed dramatically. And so, Brad, you're a second-generation Saddlebrooker. You know what I'm talking about. You've been coming here a long time. We got to make sure that we continue to move forward and we find ways to do the right things. Because as Denise pointed out, we have very significant safety issues in our maintenance facilities. But we knew that, Bill, We knew that on January 1st of 2018. And from January 1st, 2018 until now, our community's done nothing. I don't want us to go 6 more years without a thoughtful debate about whether we should tackle that problem or not. That's the power of what we're doing here. It also demonstrates the importance of the community improvement fee and its impact on the capital improvement fund, because this is a big bill. And the capital improvement fund is one of the tools in the toolkit that has to be protected to serve these interests as we go forward in all these thoughtful debates we want to engage in as a community. So without getting this on the table, we couldn't even begin to have this conversation. And so here we are. We're looking at the future that has to be dealt with. Whether we deal with it today or 10 years from now, we can run, but we can't hide.
Thanks for being patient.
Ron Lenz, 45-2. I want to put an exclamation mark on fixing outside golf at the preserve, because that's got to deter people. And we could make money on outside golf if we have an obvious way to check in. So the various options that were talked about, thumbs up. Second point, I heard comments about operating costs and solar. I was the chairman of the Energy Task Force. I have a background in engineering,
Come back.
operations, and building facilities all over the world at the right price. We are in a unique position right now in that TRICO still offers annual net metering for commercial electrical rates. That's like free money when you get annual net metering. Our home, we were grandfathered into annual net metering. Our total gas and electric bill on average is $25 a month, not each, total, for the year. I'll compare that to anybody else's electric and gas bill. We can do the same thing for our facilities to reduce our operating cost. So let's do it. So I know you don't want to get the cart before the horse, but some of these concepts need to go into this architectural stuff. And I agree, there were no solar panels there. We can put solar on the CAM and the golf maintenance and run for super low operating cost. So.
Good idea.
But other than that, she's a very pleasant.
Oh. Careful. Yeah, Ron's done. Go ahead.
I live with Ron. I know his energy stuff. What I want to say here is my single concern right now is that we take care of our employees. We cannot get employees. They don't stay long in the golf and the maintenance area. Why? Because they're existing in a dive.
It's worse than that.
We do have, I couldn't give you the number right now because I can't possibly take more numbers, that in the reserve there is money currently allocated for repairs and maintenance. Okay, it depends on how you want to use that. For both the common area and the golf court, the golf maintenance area. We need to use that money now. And we need to make that the highest priority, maybe even as close to energy saving. That needs to be our goal, and we cannot wait 5 years to do that. Our job is that we have to educate the members of this community, the homeowners. We have to make sure that our candidates to run for the board actually understand the concept. I'm advocating that when we have an election this year, that the time running up to the election has to be a time of informing the community, or the candidates that put their name out, of what is actually going on. That will get us down the road faster. We have to have people that believe that this community has to be maintained and that we have the potential for adding things, but our employees need to be kept safe. Thanks.
Mike Buckley, Unit 36, Lot 36. I just want to, both Ron and Mrs. Lenz as well, both of them have great ideas. I don't get net metering. I put on a solar system 2 years ago, but I had 2 months ago, my bill was $9 for electricity, but a lot more for gas because since I don't get net metering, I don't get as good a return. But that's still, when you get net metering in a commercial system, that's going to go away as soon as TRICO can do it. But the commission that is in charge of them probably won't let them do it if they can. But there's a lot of political pressure, so that's going to change. And time is of the essence to do anything like that kind of a project. So I recommend that that is a thought. And I just have one question. I was just informed that the CAM people are not allowed to go into the golf maintenance facility. Is that true?
Not true. Not true.
Okay, so that's not true. Okay, well.
Welcome.
Well, I just wanted to.
Can you do that on the GIO or next door? Because there's a lot of fault stuff there too.
No, I heard it from someone in the audience. But I agree that needs to be the highest priority before anything, because keeping employees happy, as we all know, happy employee, happy residents here. So anyway, and thanks for all of you for volunteering. I really appreciate it.
You know, that CAM area, to get action at that CAM area, all you got to do is get people over there. So, you know, we can talk about it, but seeing is believing in that space. And Matt, when you said to me, you know, we're going to need a couple $1 million for Mountain View, I said, hell no, just change the carpet and the lights. But when you go back in the kitchen, you're like, oh, hell yeah, this is a problem, okay? So again, our residents don't know what they don't know, right? And if they see safety, but there's got to be a way. Walter tours every week for anything you need to pay for, but that's what they need to do. They need to see it. They don't believe it until they see it.
One other thing about the kitchen over here, they actually have their freezer outside in the sun that they have to run outside to get food.
Isn't that great?
It's the freezer?
Cold storage.
Cold storage. Well,
Either way,
it should be inside. So.
That's why I said, you have to get people back there to see it, Matt.
I guess
So, you notice where all the ship flows? I'm sorry, did you say that? Look, the first note I made today is my communications champion over there is trying. You know, we're putting out the Friday message about the special assessment loan. It's kind of excited me. Video tour of the Mountain View Golf and Cam Maintenance Facility. Steve mentioned that where's all the people? I don't know where all the peoples are. But when you talk about what you just, let's put a video together and let's spend a minute with Cindy McAlbin and let's talk about cold storage outside. I need you to see this. Denise, let's do a video with you walking through the CAM facility, letting them see that concrete roll, all that stuff, right? No one will make a better spokesperson than you all that were aghast. See, Denise and I, we've been there. We've seen this. And we've been fighting for the last 18 months to change this. We've gotten our brains kicked in pretty good because everybody thinks we're spending crazy and all the rest. It ain't so. There are just problems that have to be dealt with. But I invite you all to get on the video team. Sean Kreiderman will make it happen, and we'll send out messages. We'll post it on the website, and there will be no excuse, Steve, why 5,000 people don't know what the hell is going on.
Hey, residents' turn.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Thanks for waiting.
Roger Beard, Unit 25, Lot 70. I have just two quick comments that I'd like to ask to be written down. One is, I think that the suggestion about having a second story for arts and crafts is probably a bad idea from a climate standpoint, from an operating cost standpoint. I don't think that makes sense. The other thing I wanted to comment on was first of all, I like very much the improvements for the preserve. I think they are incremental. I think they make sense. I'm interested in whether the bar will have outside access or whether we would have to traipse through the restaurant to gain access to the bar.
So,
Outside access to the bar.
Well, what is
Yeah.
the access to the
yeah, Roger, I'm going to give you an answer that Glenn would give you, and that is, it's all in the details, and we're not anywhere close to
Well,
that. But yeah, I think the
it's an
point
important
is,
detail.
he would say
Today
you
it's
got to be able to
convenient.
do
Today
it.
it's convenient.
Yeah.
I want to make sure the community. And then the last thing, I'd like to take a cut at this communication problem, because it is a problem. And I think that we have to address it. Creative solutions like that one is part of it. But I think it would be helpful to do more surveys. I think it'd be helpful to do more presentations on issues and problems and topics that the board is dealing with and solicit input from the community and then really listen and play back what you've heard to make sure you've heard it right. Today, I wasn't very pleased with the presentation on the survey. And the reason I wasn't was that I thought the questions were not necessarily worded correctly. I didn't think that they were necessarily the right questions. And it troubled me that the interpretation that was made hadn't been validated. A follow-up survey to confirm the conclusions of the survey seems like a good idea. What we need to have is more dialogue, more input for the community. We need to demonstrate that the board and the committees are listening to the community. I think that'll help a lot in terms of the resistance that we've been experiencing the last few months. Thank you.
Hey, Roger. What's that look like? This communication thing that you're articulating?
I'm saying we work at it, it's a problem, we solve it. Don't just say it can't be done, figure it out.
No, I would say to you, we've been working very, very hard to figure it out and to be innovative and creative.
That is an innovation, what you just suggested is an innovation.
Right.
That's one. But do more presentations on problems and issues you can't deal with. Describe the problem, we don't have a solution. Look for the community to give you feedback by email or by a survey. Use a survey tool, it's free. Survey monkey's free. Use the hell out of it.
It's me again. I just want, it's not a comment, more of a question, because I don't know about the surveys. What was the percentage of participation in that survey? Because
It was statistically significant, and I don't have my survey with me. It's a 95% confidence level, if I recall I think it's a 95% confidence level.
So people do answer the surveys, is what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that more than 50% of our residents answered the survey, which equated to a 95% confidence level on the interpretation of the results.
Okay, that's what I didn't understand.
Roger? Where's Roger? Got a number of those engagements in my head. One is part of the budget process, this long-range planning. A number of people like Bill look at me and say, man, I'm 87, Matt. You're chopping and no chips are flying. And so this whole idea of trying to put financial stability into the community and understanding the challenges related to how residents pay their fair share for not only what they're using today, but contributing to the future. So all the literature I'm reading and studying, if we don't do a good job in planning, and we turn over 200 houses a year, in 5 years, that's 1,000 houses. And if we're not doing a good job in our planning to meet our financial obligations and eating that elephant a little bit at a time, then we end up with a $1,500 assessment that everybody wants to shoot me over. And so if that's what you're interested in, that's exactly where I think we're going.
Hi, Nancy Teeter, Unit 31, Lot 54. I've always admired visionaries, and I don't think a lot of people are visionaries. I think they're like just what's ahead of me in the next month. So to be able to think out 10 years and say, we've got this major picture, but we're going to break it into pieces, and the analogy of eating the elephant one bite at a time works. But I think people sometimes get the wrong idea in a presentation like McMahon did, that all this is going to happen at once. This is the grand scheme, instead of seeing this as a long timeline. I think the other thing that goes on in Saddlebrook, and I'll say this because it's personally guilty. So I've been here 17 years, and I never went to board meetings. I kind of felt guilty. Annie Peeker had been unit rep for so long of Unit 31, and nobody else would do it, so I'm doing it. And that forces me to go to meetings. And yet I'm here today, because I'm now seeing that we're not on vacation. You know, we were tired, and then we were like, I don't want to work anymore. I don't want to think about important stuff. So that all of you who think about important stuff, I really admire you. I admire the board. But I think that's why we don't get turnouts for board meetings. People don't click any further on the Monday message than they have to. It's because we really just want to live in Shangri-La without worrying about it. So I would say everything you can do, any kind of pieces to communicate, but there's no one single answer. I wonder what the click rate is for the loan updates. I really admire you for doing those. But I see the big problem, and I just want to say I really thank you all. I do like the plan for the preserve. If I were ranking things, the preserve would be there, the kitchen here, because I spent my life in food service getting those kitchens right. I do have a concern about the multi-court building that they're calling pickleball, because that's going to raise a lot of problems. But the multi-purpose building would take place of a place they're going to spend money doing cornhole right now. And it seems like we're pouring money into something and then covering up and doing something else. So I know, but I'm just saying, but they would pay for it, and then it would be torn out.
No, cornhole's worth that
10
or 15 years from now, we're going to play a lot of cornhole.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, again, but we don't see, without the timeline, but Desert View seems like way down on the priority list. And a question that I would ask McMahon is that lovely little gathering area for the theater sounds like a good idea. How do you get to it? Because I couldn't quite see the access. But I've been up here long enough, but thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you.
I have the whole board over here.
Shut up! No, I don't care. Guys, I'll walk over here.
Can I ask one more question? Nancy's the one who prompted it. Nancy, you prompted another question in my mind. And this will be an impromptu survey. Those of us who use the Desert Theater for the entertainment that we see, how many of us get there early to have a little, would get there early to have a little drink, stay afterwards, or do you just go in, come out, and get home? I'm the one who goes in, goes out, and goes home.
So we don't have a place.
But do you do that just because we have
maybe
nothing?
I should ask who would hang around in the sports bar. Okay, so it's about half. Okay, about half.
Welcome to Saddlebrook.
I guess I'm not that
So what do you want me to write down? Nothing people want to be in a sports bar?
Half the people want to drink all the time.
You know, one of the things in the survey that was on the second page, just the age group of our respondents, and we are so heavily slated to the older group. Yeah. The older group. We have 41%, 76 or older. Yeah, and you know, and that group is, like you said, Matt, I said before, is only going to move out of their pockets if they can see a real problem, right? So, you know, when you looked at the other community we were benchmarked with, I mean, we are just, and between 66 and it was 87, 66 and older, page 2 of the results. It is an older community, and part of this is what is going to attract the next generation. You know, we don't have a lot of experience in our older residents to know what to look for to be in the next generation.
Yeah. The good people I had, Dan was entertaining the McMahon group when I walked in, so I sat down with the Einekers. And Mrs. Eineker, her parents lived in Tucson. Bill's from Chicago. And she let Bill know when he retired, they ain't retiring in Chicago, we're going back to the sun. So they came back here. They had been looking at Saddlebrook since HOA 1 got started because they were coming here to see her mom. But what she said to me is, you know why we looked at everything around Tucson, you know why we bought in Saddlebrook? Everything we have. They came here because of everything that's right here. Pretty much why we're here. And so I think what resonates with new home buyers, and if we did a competent job of surveying new homeowners, give us the top 5 reasons why you're in Saddlebrook, and they told us that, we'd have a much better clue about how to answer your question. And I think that's one of the things that we can get better at. Because Denise, I think it's a great question. It's really understanding we got folks here that cover 3 decades.
Right.
Right? We're always going to have folks here that cover 3 decades. And their priorities are always going to be different.
So why don't we survey our 40-plus and 50-year-old children and ask them what they want when they retire?
They're too busy working.
I'll ask my son.
They ain't thinking about it.
Okay.
I've been waiting all day for you to jump up and grab that mic.
How many people watch the videos? Oh, I'm sorry. David Horner, Unit 47. I don't know my line.
David, talking to the mic.
David, you got it? Okay, sweetie, like that. Leave it right there.
Can we get new equipment where we don't have to
No, that's the best.
stand like this? How many residents watch the videos of the board meetings? What's the click-through? No, I don't mean here. I mean,
Tomorrow, we're going to have a management meeting, and one of the subjects I've asked Walter to brief us on is the click data on all the board meetings that we've had this year, and the click rates on the Friday messages we've had, because that's constructive information I want to convey to the community.
I mean, I was on vacation last month when the audit was reported on and all of that. The first 10 minutes of Campbell's presentation, I had to try to read his lips because the audio didn't work. And so it was really difficult. So making sure that the information is out there, but I've been here a year, a little over a year. I can't be more disappointed in the lack of attendance at those board meetings. I'm shocked. Having the videos of them, if people are watching and being informed by them, that's great, but they need to be there. They need to be showing their support. And something else is the disparaging comments made to the group GIO. That gets a lot of play. A lot of people are out there and a lot of people are griping, but and there's bad information out there. You guys need to know what's out there. Somebody needs to pay attention to that. Somebody needs to participate in that, because Mona does a great job of moderating that site, okay, and trying to correct misinformation that's out there. She's a great historian of the community that helps me get, history on context on things. But I don't know what you do to get better communication. I watched your video, you and Walter's video. I didn't need to see that, but I watched it. And I thought it was good. I thought it was a great effort. I'd like to know how many other people watched that. I don't mean here. So.
Hey, David, a part of, look, I'm going to be very honest. I came here because I wanted to be part of an active adult retirement community. And I want to capitalize active. And a whole lot of residents here are very happy and they're very active. So the consultants, the wonderful thing about consultants, they give you funny things to tell. And so there's 3 phases of our retirement experience. The go-go phase, the slow-go phase, and the no-go phase. And if you're blessed to live long enough, you're going to go pretty much through all of it. I get to watch it. I've been here 10 years. I see it in my own neighborhood. I see it with people that are very dear to us. And so I applaud everybody that wakes up in the morning and moves. Whether you're in the gym or walking or playing tennis or pickleball or golf, I don't care what it is. I serve this community because I want the big A in active. I want to find every way to get somebody to move. My wife says, you do nothing with me, you're going to play cornhole. I think she was the first person that signed up for cornhole. I was getting burned in effigy over cornhole, and she's signing us up. Bless her heart. But we get to do it together. And so part of that is I'm often shocked why more of the 41% ain't at the board meetings. I get the other folks are out there doing something. But until we threw option 3 out there and said, here's the journey for the next 10 years, I want you to remember this. That theater was overflowing.
Yeah. They woke up.
I told Dan Liniger this year, Matt, how do we get people to come to the board meeting? Talk to them about their money. I wish I'd have given myself my own. Listen, I'm being serious now. We have serious challenges, and we're attacking them. I'm so proud of my board mates, my colleagues on the board. We are busy setting them up and knocking them down. We've taken on every challenge that's been set in front of us. I wish I could tell you I don't have scars, but that wouldn't be true. And so I haven't lost my passion for serving the residents of this community and trying to do a couple of things. Make sure that you know the truth. Okay, I get accused of being a liar. I'm anything but a liar. I'm an honest, straightforward person. I will tell you exactly what I believe and why I believe it. I have a strong point of view. And I'll grant you all that. I work hard to listen. We as a board are working hard to listen. It's a two-way street, though. My wife, my beautiful wife, said to me, "Do you think the residents really listen when you talk?" And I said, "That's great advice. Maybe I should stop talking."
Oh, so he hands the mic to me. No, the other thing is I want to say, and we're so grateful for Matt because he's kept the board going. What I don't like is when people are disrespectful and rude. I'm as passionate about pickleball as anybody. You heard it today. But I hope, and my mother, God love her, would be spinning if she thought I was ever disrespectful or rude to someone or called them a liar or said untruths. David, I don't go on GIO. I don't go on Nextdoor. You want to talk to me? I'm having breakfast every Wednesday morning. I did it at the very beginning. Well, I don't want to be brought down by the people who continually say horrible things about me, my board, my general manager, my assistant general manager, my maintenance guy, when they don't know what they're talking about. Come and talk to me. And that's their choice. You know, and I'm going to choose not to, and I don't think I should be blamed for it, but I am open. Our phone numbers are everywhere.
I don't like texting. I really don't.
Okay.
It's the only way I can communicate with my boys.
And
If I don't text, I don't.
they don't talk to you. That's right. Mona, you want to say something? Yeah. Okay. I just need to write. That's fine. Okay, Joey, we're paying you overtime. Mandy, we're paying Joey overtime.
I actually agree that it's very difficult, and I've told people on GIO that it is difficult and impossible for board members to, say, communicate through social media. It puts them in a bad position because the whole community may not be on there. So it's not anything I encourage. A lot of them are on there and read it, and that's fine. On GIO, people are not allowed to post negative personal adjectives or anything like that. Nextdoor, we have no control over. But if someone posts something with false information, we do try to post correct information and links to board information, encourage people to go to the meetings like we posted about this meeting, which wasn't on Monday Message, by the way, to encourage them to attend. A lot of people do watch the videos and do read the messages, I think. And so if there's anything on there, we do, if there's something in particular that I think the board needs to know, and they're not on there, I usually would communicate that with them, but just so you know that. So people are not allowed to post negative personal things on GIO. Nextdoor we have no control over. And that's why we encourage people to post local HOA discussions on GIO versus Nextdoor, because I would rather not have them on Nextdoor with the negative comments that are made about our community. I think it's detrimental to our community. But positive communication and sharing the information and links and stuff.
An official website or chat room or whatever that was maintained by the community, that was maintained by administration?
No, not to my, no, not to my, no. We don't engage on Facebook. Okay. All right. Anybody else?
No, we're done.
Okay. Oh, Dan
We're
Norhill.
done. No, we're over our time limit. I got Denise over here who's starting to dance. Please, task force, please, if you get any information, if you get any thoughts, send them to me, because Friday of next week I intend to be sending all the collective information to Glenn, and Sean will feed me all of this and we'll summarize it. We'll try to condense it so that We'll try to condense it so that Kevin doesn't have to try to figure out what it is we're trying to say. Okay?